3 minutes, take your seats, and we start our session. So, dear colleagues, please take your seats. And before we start the other nomination, I would like to tell you about the order. Dear colleagues, please take your seats. Yesterday, we make some exceptions from some countries because their ministers had to leave. But today we will follow strictly the order which we have in our book, 8B. And I will, in alphabetical order, it will be Africa, Arab states, Asia Pacific, Europe, North America, Latin America, Caribbean. And the advisory body's evaluation documents and this working document I presented in this order. So we looked yesterday to the African sites, cultural sites, then mixed cultural, and it will be natural sites in the end. So now we start with Arab region. Al Zubara Archaeological Site, Qatar. ICOMOS, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could we have the next slide, please? A location plan for the Al Zubara site. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. Could we have the next slide, please? There's no one from the center. No, even here there's no one from the center.
ICOMOS, please.
Madam Chair, I'm waiting for the next slide. There seems to be a slight technical problem.
English is working, French is blocked by some reasons. Please, technicians, check.
Madam Chair, we understand from speaking to people behind that they are not able to forward the slides at the moment.
But can we proceed with the English version of slides?
I'm not sure it's possible to forward the English versions. Can we try?
Oh, the English is also not forwarding.
Ah, it's not.
Yeah, it's okay. Now it's come.
It's stuck on this.
Maybe you can proceed without slides.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can we try and see if we can forward the slides? Could we have the next slide? And could we have the next one? We seem to be working. Good. Next slide, please. Right, here is a map of the property, this coastal archaeological site and its buffer zone. Next slide, please. The walled coastal town of Al Zubarah flourished in the late 18th and early 19th centuries and is seen as one of the most important centers of pearl diving and pearl trading in the Arabian Gulf. The town is believed to have been founded by the Utub merchants from Kuwait. At the height of its prosperity, Al Zubarah had trading links with the Indian Ocean, Arabia, and Western Asia. Next slide, please. The town was mostly destroyed in 1811 and finally abandoned in the early 20th century, after which its rubble, stone, and mortar buildings collapsed, and its complete remains were gradually covered by protective layers of sand blown from the desert. Part of the town has been excavated. Next slide, please. In terms of categories, this is a site. Next slide, please. Strategically located in the Arabian Gulf between the Indian Ocean and Western Asia, Al Zubarah is one of many towns to have existed over the past millennia in that area whose prosperity was based on sea trade. Al Zubarah was not the largest, but certainly was one of the most prosperous towns in a short period between around 1760 and 1811 AD. What distinguishes Al Zubarah from other towns is the fact that it was abandoned and its layout has been preserved under the desert sands. Next slide, please. The harbour was protected to the north by a spur of the town wall that extended into the sea. British warships sank a large number of dhows in the harbour in 1895, and their remains could still be preserved underwater. Next slide, please. There are two town walls, the inner one representing the main phase of the town between 1760 and 1811, and the outer wall is constructed of undressed coral limestone and includes 22 circular towers that were integrated into the pattern of the houses. Next slide, please. The later inner wall has 11 towers, and some, as you can see here, have been reconstructed. Next slide, please. Within the town, there are two distinct palatial compounds of a form that is found in many other parts of the Gulf. However, Al Zubarah is seen to be part of a planned urban form whose layout has been largely preserved. Parts of the palace have been excavated, and near to them are large public squares, and a mosque site has been identified. Next slide, please. So far, no finds have been made to show who lived in these palaces and houses, nor precisely where their wealth came from, whether from the pearl industry or the other forms of trade, or both. Next slide, please. The town plans show clearly the subdivision into neighbourhoods with clusters of courtyard houses that might reflect different activities. It is suggested that the layout of the town was designed rather than growing organically. Next slide, please. Remains of a canal that perhaps facilitated the transport of goods by water to and from the coast still remain. Next one, please. Parts of almost two parallel screening walls with towers at intervals protected this canal, and there are the remains of a small fort at one end. Next one, please. This fort, which is part of the property, was constructed in 1768 on a raised escarpment overlooking the town, but was destroyed in the 1960s. Next slide, please. Inside, there are evidence for large cisterns for storing water and wells. Next slide, please. Finally, just above the town is this police fort built in 1936, perhaps one of the last such forts to be constructed. It's unrelated to the site. Next slide, please. But it may be used as an interpretation center for the property. Next slide, please. In 2009, the Qatar Islamic Archaeology and Heritage Projects was started. This is a 10-year research program being undertaken jointly with the University of Copenhagen to investigate the fragile remains and work towards the presentation of the site. New slide, please. The key issue that the dossier raises is what this abandoned what this abandoned town site testifies, and therefore what is its significance. The outstanding universal value that has been suggested puts forward a relationship between the city and the pearl industry and suggests that the town is the most complete and most well-preserved pearl trading town in the Gulf in the 18th and 19th centuries. However, very little evidence has been presented to substantiate that link. Next slide, please. And indeed, the comparative analysis shows other towns in the Gulf area that are seen to have more physical remains linked to the pearl industry. Next slide, please. What is known about the town appears not to support the idea of it being a major pearling center, but rather suggests that the town, together with satellite settlements, might together paint a vivid picture of small city-state in the Gulf and how it related to both trade to its desert hinterland and to the sea. Next slide, please. The research project that is being carried out is very well resourced and may well answer some of these questions. A management plan was submitted in January 2012 and will be implemented over the next year. And this sets out a raft of new policies for protecting the cultural heritage. Next slide, please. The desert setting is vulnerable to development of infrastructure projects, and the buffer zone will be crucial to protecting this setting. Next slide, please. The remains of Al Zubarah are very fragile. The exposed archaeological structures pose a major challenge. They are highly vulnerable to deterioration from the harsh environmental conditions. The earliest conservation works on the site used mortar, which is contributing towards their decay, and this clearly has to be reversed. The Qatar project is progressing surveys and analysis that will lead to development of a conservation strategy. Next slide, please. As has already been mentioned, the main issue that ICOMOS addressed was the potential outstanding universal value of this site. We do not consider that a case has been made to justify Al Zubarah being outstanding in terms of a pearling settlement in the 18th and 19th centuries. We do, however, consider that perhaps with more research it will become clearer what the prosperity of Al Zubarah was based on, when it was founded, how the city was used, who lived in it, and how it related to the seaborne and desert trade. The very well-resourced research project that is now underway should begin to provide some answers and could then help to understand how how Al Zubarah might be considered as exceptional. ICOMOS considers that this is the key issue to be resolved. Without a justification for outstanding universal value, we cannot assess authenticity and integrity. Next slide, please. ICOMOS therefore recommends that this property be deferred in order to address the issues that I have just outlined. ICOMOS considers any future nomination would need to be a new nomination to reflect the new material and a new justification for outstanding universal value. New slide, please. We also have a few recommendations which we'll see in your papers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Floor is open. Mexico, please take the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Agradecemos el informe que el órgano consultivo nos da, pero nos deja una cantidad de dudas que quisiéramos disipar en esta discusión. Primero que nada, reconocer lo extraordinario de este sitio en la península arábiga y que además nos da cuenta de asentamientos de una enorme profundidad histórica y que son fundamentales para entender la cultura en su conjunto de esta región del mundo. Sin embargo, nos deja también perplejos alguna serie de elementos que están manifiestos en el informe del ICOMOS y que verdaderamente no acabamos de entender, como en un sitio de esta talla se preguntan por el tema de la integridad. Esto no es la primera vez que se aborda en los sitios arqueológicos y teniendo esa gran cuestión, quisiéramos formularle al Estado parte cómo ellos en la postulación han abordado de manera, para nosotros, bastante más clara el tema de la integridad del sitio. Nos parece un asunto fundamental para sustentar el valor universal del sitio y quisiéramos hacerle esa pregunta al Estado parte. Muchas gracias, señora presidenta.
That at the end.
Thank you very much. Colombia, floor is yours.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Respaldamos todo lo que acaba de decir México. Para nosotros, para nuestros expertos, este es un sitio de gran importancia porque dentro del Golfo es el único sitio virgen que existe. Los otros han sido tocados por el desarrollo y por la industria. Para nosotros la integridad y la autenticidad de un sitio arqueológico es casi incuestionable, entonces quisiéramos saber un poco más por qué lo están cuestionando. Igualmente quisiéramos darle la palabra al Estado parte para que nos pudieran dar una información de los avances que hayan hecho en las investigaciones arqueológicas y en el desarrollo del plan de manejo y el organismo encargado de su implementación. Gracias.
Malaysia, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My delegation will be brief. Malaysia has been given the latest document prepared by the State Party in support for their nomination. Malaysia, like Mexico and Colombia, would like also to request that they would be given the opportunity to update the information on their site to further clarify and justify their nomination. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Cambodia, floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Le Cambodge remercie tout d'abord le rapport de l'ICOMOS. Nous tenons à vous apporter quelques précisions sur ce site. Le site archéologique de Zubarah présente 3 caractéristiques importantes qui contribuent à lui faire reconnaître la VUE. La première, une situation unique dans la région du Golfe. Il n'existe pas à notre connaissance d'autres sites similaires présentant ces caractéristiques. Deuxièmement, un site avec une muraille de plus de 2 km, avec un plan en damier, ce n'est pas une chose courante. Troisièmement, un rapport entre le désert et la mer pour une implantation urbaine de plus de 3 siècles d'existence, reflet des relations commerciales intenses entre le Golfe, l'Asie et l'Europe. Merci.
Thank you very much. Russian Federation, floor is yours.
Спасибо, уважаемая госпожа председатель. Мы поддерживаем заявку Катара на внесение данного объекта в список всемирного наследия. Очевидно, что он заслуживает дальнейшей защиты, как выдающийся памятник человечества. Вместе с тем, мы, как и многие другие страны, обратили внимание на отсутствие документов о целостности и достоверности объекта и других. Так же, как и другие страны, выступавшие до нас, хотели бы обратиться к стране-члену и уточнить, в каком состоянии находится сейчас их подготовка. Спасибо.
Senegal, please, floor is.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous voulons d'abord remercier l'ICOMOS pour son rapport et aussi souligner, comme l'a fait la Colombie, le caractère authentique et exceptionnel du site dans le contexte du Golfe. Et le rapport de l'ICOMOS a parlé de valeurs universelles. Avec les documents que j'ai lus, il paraît qu'il y a eu des recherches qui ont été faites après le départ de la mission de l'ICOMOS et je voudrais entendre l'État partie sur ces recherches a posteriori et quel impact ça peut avoir sur la valeur universelle exceptionnelle. Vous avez parlé de l'industrie perlière. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. I would like only to say that I will give the floor to State Party to answer all the questions so you fix them, and to ICOMOS. So now, Switzerland, floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Il est vrai que ce site a des caractéristiques qui peuvent fasciner, mais pour nous, il y a quand même aussi des questions qui restent ouvertes quant à l'examen pour le patrimoine mondial. Comme on a pu comprendre, il y a un grand projet de recherche archéologique qui est actuellement en cours et qui sera terminé que dans quelques années. Donc aujourd'hui, les questions qui restent ouvertes sont existe-t-il effectivement des témoins matériels et exceptionnels associés à l'industrie perlière? Y a-t-il dans cet urbanisme archéologique, si je peux me permettre ainsi, des typologies particulières de résidences, d'ateliers ou d'urbanisme qui sont très concrètement liées à cette industrie perlière et qui distingueraient Al-Zubarah de manière exceptionnelle de tous les autres potentielles villes perlières dans cette région? Ou devrait-on plutôt, comme le suggère d'ailleurs l'ICOMOS, vérifier si Al-Zubarah pourrait être un exemple exceptionnel, un peu orienté différemment d'un établissement qui témoigne d'une interaction spécifique de ses habitants, leur activité et le hinterland? Autrement dit, nous pensons que cette candidature est en quelque sorte prématurée et qu'aujourd'hui, nous n'avons pas les éléments qui nous permettent d'établir cette valeur universelle exceptionnelle nécessaire, et nous pensons par conséquent que la recommandation de différer la candidature est tout à fait justifiée et aidera aussi à l'État partie de remettre cette candidature sur un chemin qui permettra son inscription dans 1 ou 2 ans. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. Mali, floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Je remercie également l'ICOMOS pour ce brillant rapport qui nous édifie beaucoup sur un site intact, exceptionnel. Je ne vais pas répéter ceux qui m'ont précédé. Je voudrais seulement insister, Madame, sur 2 points importants. J'ai vu que parmi les recommandations de l'ICOMOS, il était question de renforcer la zone tampon, mais aussi d'organiser une étude d'impact environnemental sur les conséquences éventuelles que pourrait avoir une industrie sur les sites. Bien, par rapport au premier point, la zone tampon, selon les informations reçues également, il y a des documents officiels qui ont été approuvés et que le ministère en charge des municipalités et du plan est en train de mettre en œuvre. Ensuite, par rapport à l'étude d'impact environnemental, Madame la représentante de l'ICOMOS a parlé de l'existence d'une équipe, une équipe pluridisciplinaire formée d'experts nationaux et internationaux et qui est également en train de préparer une étude sur l'impact éventuel que des industries pourraient affecter le site. Madame la Présidente, nous sommes en face d'un site exceptionnel, mais aussi nous devons saisir cette chance parce que nous avons affaire à un des rares sites du Golfe qui n'a pas encore été affecté par des industries. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. India, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We believe that the proposed nomination appears to be an important site to be inscribed as a remarkable archaeological site that has survived in a very hostile and fragile environment. There are, of course, concerns that ICOMOS has, and they can be addressed by the state party in due course of time. So we would request the state party to inform us about the further progress of archaeological works they had done. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Jomini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I must say, for once, I disagree with Switzerland. Sorry to my dear colleagues. I think this site is of a very, very large, beautiful, aesthetical, archaeological, and also intercultural value. It's 200 years old, it's very specific. As it was said by my colleague from India, it's a very fragile environment. And I have already spoken to Qatar, I must say, to ask them information about the progress. I know they have an excellent team of experts, and I have all confidence that next year they will be ready, taking into account what ICOMOS needs them to do. But I have all confidence that this wouldn't last long, so I'm for a referral of this site. Thank you.
Thank you very much. France, floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Je voulais faire simplement une remarque. Il me semblait que l'industrie de la perle qui pouvait provoquer certaines suspicions ou certaines questions en fait, n'est pas une industrie de nature à provoquer l'établissement ou l'installation de grosses infrastructures. Deuxièmement, c'est une question rapide. Je vais m'associer à la question de la Fédération de Russie pour savoir quelles mesures concrètes va prendre l'État du Qatar pour une protection durable du site. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. Estonia, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Estonia would like to commend the State Party that in this predominantly archaeological site, they have also included this interwar period fort. In a way, this as a last example of this old tradition of military and police posts, still built in the just before the World War II broke down. It's a real curiosity. And we would like to encourage the State Party that while they are going to elaborate their OUV for the next year, that they surely keep this interesting part. Thank you.
Thank you very much. United Arab Emirates, floor is yours.
شكرا السيدة الرئيسة. الإمارات تود أن تقدم الشكر للإيكوموس على ما بذل من طرفهم لتقييم هذا الملف، وبنفس الوقت نحن نضم صوتنا إلى من تداخلوا قبلنا على الأهمية الاستثنائية لهذا الموقع، مع تقديرنا لما يقلق الإيكوموس أو ما طالبت به من جهد للقيام به من قبل الدولة الطرف. لذلك نحن في انتظار الإيضاحات التي ستقوم بها الدولة الطرف لدعم ما عرضه المتداخلون ولإيضاح الأهمية الاستثنائية لهذا الموقع. شكرا.
Thank you very much. I would ask you to be more brief. Serbia, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam President. Serbia's position in this is very positive. We are much impressed by other assessments of the value of this project. If I may add to this a view that rarely have I seen a site which is so genuinely promising without providing the kind of information that we are looking for. And it seems to me that this is an opportunity to grant a status of what clearly is an invaluable site in terms of its archaeological promise, which can provide us through the support of the declaration of the site in terms of its universal value, as far as its potential offering in the future is concerned. It seems to me also that expectations of typologies of various potential results is, of course, an expectation which all archaeologists harbor and wish for, but archaeology and its results cannot be predicted. And it's precisely that aspect which I think is of enormous value and should be granted the support through the acceptance of this site in quick order. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now I will give the floor to the State Party. Floor is yours.
شكرا سيدة الرئيسة، شكرا لكم وشكرا جميع المتداخلين، وأعطي الكلمة للخبراء للرد على التساؤلات. شكرا.
السيدة الرئيسة، السادة الحضور، أبدأ بأن أؤكد أننا نحترم زملائنا في الأيكوموس ونحن على علاقة جيدة معهم، ولا نقبل أن يكون بيننا إشكال مهني أو أكاديمي. عودة إلى ناحية شكلية وقد تكون إجرائية. عندما تقدمنا بالفايل بملف تسجيل هذا الموقع كنا على دراية أن هناك أسئلة أخرى ستسأل منا، وأنجزنا برنامج عمل 3 أضعاف البرنامج العادي بمشاركة نخبة من كبار علماء الآثار والإدارة التراث والبيئة والتاريخ الشفهي وما إليها وكل ما يتعلق بهذا الأمر. وأعددنا ملفا متكاملا مئات الصفحات يجيب على الجزء الأكبر، حتى لا أقول كل الأسئلة التي طرحها الزملاء في التقرير والذي أدى إلى نتيجة الدفرل أو التأجيل التي طلبوها. نحن مستعدون أن نقدم هذه المعلومات وهذه الأجوبة سواء على المستوى القيمة التاريخية والحضارية للموقع أو على مستوى إدارة الموقع وحمايته وتوظيفه. يعني لا إذا كان يسمح الوقت سنجيب على بعض أسئلة محددة. قيل لنا أن المدينة مثلا ليس هناك ما يثبت أن المدينة كانت فقط تعيش على تجارة اللؤلؤ. نحن لم نقل أن المدينة فقط عاشت على اللؤلؤ، لكن المدينة قدمت نموذجا استثنائيا كيف أنها ربطت مصادر الثروات المائية بما فيها اللؤلؤ والسمك أيضا مع المصادر البرية، وأقامت نموذجا متكاملا وفريدا من نوعه. بالتأكيد اللؤلؤ كان أحد أهم ثروات المدينة، لكن لم يكن هو الحل الوحيد. والدلائل الأثرية أنتم كما تعلمون وخاصة علماء الآثار، ونحن يعني مقتنعون بتفهمهم لهذا الرأي، تجارة اللؤلؤ أو غيرها لا تترك آثار، لا تبقي آثار مادية مباشرة، لكنها مدونة بآثار أو بكتابات وثائقية وبمصادر تاريخية وأرشيف. وبنفس الوقت وجدنا دلائل أيضا آثارية مباشرة، وجدنا أحجار الغطس، وجدنا الصدف، وجدنا القوارب منقوشة على جدران المنازل، ووجدنا نمط من المباني الذي يرتبط بالتجارات البحرية وما إليها. فهذه الناحية يعني بالنسبة لنا، وهي بحث طبعا مع مزيد من البحث مع مزيد من التنقيب سنحصل على المزيد من المعلومات. فيما يخص أيضا الإدارة والمانجمنت، هناك فريق متكامل يعمل على أكثر من صعيد في حماية الموقع وفي إدارة الموقع وفي صيانته وترميمه وما إليها. يعني هذه تقريبا كل الأمور التي طرحها زملائنا في التقرير لدينا عليها إجابات يعني مقنعة، إلا حتى لا أقول أكثر من مقنعة. ونحن لا نقبل لموقع بأهمية الزبارة، وصدقا بأهمية الزبارة وببعد هذا الموقع، أن يسجل بتقرير سلبي. نحن نريد عندما نطالب بالتسجيل، وأنا أعتقد أننا محقون مهنيا وعلميا، لأننا فعلا أعطينا هذا الموقع ما يستحق، وأعطينا هذا الموقع ما في باطنه من معلومات استثنائية. وشكرا.
Thank you very much. ICOMOS, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, may I say that we agree with the Honourable Delegate for Mexico that this is a site that is unique in the Gulf. The issue is quite what its outstanding universal value is. And it was in relation to outstanding universal value or potential outstanding universal value that we were considering authenticity and integrity, which is set out in our printed evaluation, So we're not just saying generally no authenticity, no integrity, and I would like to stress that point very clearly. We're saying in relation to an outstanding universal value that is still not clear, it is quite difficult to articulate the attributes that reflect that outstanding universal value. So it's within that context that this slight question mark over authenticity and integrity is within our report, not a blanket no to both of those, because that, so I'm glad to have the opportunity to clarify that aspect. The State Party pointed out very clearly the enormous amount of work that is being done on this site and has been done since the nomination was submitted. And indeed, the information we understand exists reflects the work of a huge interdisciplinary and very impressive research project. We are very optimistic that this will produce exceptional material. We sympathize with the State Party in saying they were expecting questions from us, but this does bring up the issues that we discussed yesterday as to how we can engage with the State Party and the limits of the material that we can receive at certain times of year. I understand you have a box full of extra material, and it is just difficult halfway through the evaluation process to receive the equivalent of a new nomination dossier. Unfortunately, the system doesn't really work like that. So we do sympathize that this is an ongoing project. Huge amounts of research work is being done. A great deal of clarification will, I hope, emerge. But the question is, how do we actually incorporate that into the processes that we are asked to address? Now, we recommended deferral, and I hope that is not seen as a negative report, because we did put in our report very clearly that we saw the potential outstanding universal value of this site, but we just felt that it needed crystallizing on the basis of this research. Unfortunately, a referral would not offer the opportunity for us to consider in any detail a new nomination dossier, nor would it allow us to undertake a mission to the site, because we would in effect have only a few weeks to look at the new material that's submitted next year. So this is, in our view, this is a case where deferral is a useful tool, because it would allow us to have a dialogue with the State Party. It would allow the submission of a full new nomination dossier, which could do justice to the enormous amount of material which we understand is now available. Thank you very much.
Dear colleagues, I see the nameplates raised. So I proposed strictly to go to the draft decision, if you are not against. Okay. United Arab Emirates, floor is yours.
شكرا السيدة الرئيسة. عندما تداخلت قبل قليل لم نود الإطالة انتظارا لتدخل الدولة الطرف، لكن نحن نعيش في منطقة واحدة في منطقة الخليج، وندرك تميز هذا الموقع في منطقتنا وفرادته، وقد عبر كثير من المتداخلون عن هذه المسألة. لكن ما أود إضافته هنا أنه بحكم تواصلنا المباشر بزملائنا في الدولة الطرف، قيل لنا أن هذا الملف تم تقديمه منذ سنتين، وهو الملف الأول لدولة قطر، وكثير مننا مر بهذه التجربة لعدم وجود خبرة كافية في مسألة تقنية تقديم الملفات ولضيق حجم المساحة التي تتسع للمعلومات المطلوبة. لذلك يعني قيل لنا من الزملاء في قطر أنهم انتظروا فترة طويلة للحصول على استشارة أو على رد معين خلال هذه الفترة حتى يعرفوا أين يقفوا. ولما لم يكن هناك أي تواصل مبكر بينهم وبين الهيئات الاستشارية، قاموا من أنفسهم عندما شعروا أنه ربما يكون هناك نقص واشتغلوا خلال الفترة الماضية في البحوث ولإعداد أي نواقص بعد أن سألوا زملائهم في دول أخرى، ولذلك قاموا بجهد كبير. تمنيت لو أن هناك حصل تواصل بينهم وبين الإيكوميرس خلال السنتين الماضية، ربما كانت هذه الانشغالات التي عرضتها إيكوميرس كانت مستوفاة. لذلك إذا كان لا زال هناك مجال لتأكد من هذا المسألة، هناك خبير آخر وخبراء بإمكانهم أن يفيدونا بالبحوث التي قاموا بها، ولو وصلت في حينها وفرت لنا هذا النقاش. شكرا.
Germany.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I apologize for taking the floor again. I'll be brief. I think we have to give the government of Qatar the reason of the doubt, because they have been doing everything they could. They have been waiting for an answer and they didn't get any, and that's not their fault. And maybe it's not anybody's fault, but I think if this committee is in a position within 3 months to judge about the Church of the Nativity, then it should be able within 1 year to come to a finding with Qatar. And I'm very confident, because Professor Thyssen and his international team are very, very experienced. They will do everything to make possible that ICOMOS gets the papers in time, I think, and I see the party nodding. And by the way, referral is not always 1 year. If it doesn't work till next year, I think the experts and the government are responsible enough to then do it the year after. Referral is within 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Algeria.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je voudrais d'abord féliciter l'État partie du Qatar pour les efforts et les moyens qu'il a déployés pour constituer un dossier complet et bien documenté de propositions d'inscription d'un site archéologique, le site d'El Zoubara. J'ai pu consulter le rapport de l'ICOMOS que j'ai trouvé globalement positif et l'on est remercié. La seule peut-être hésitation de l'ICOMOS, en fait, l'histoire de la VUE, résidait à mon sens dans la relation à établir entre les vestiges d'El Zoubara et l'industrie perlière. Honorables délégués, nous ne sommes pas en train de discuter du cas d'un site historique ou d'un paysage culturel, mais d'un site archéologique qui doit être approché d'abord dans la perspective d'une lecture et d'une interprétation archéologique, comme nous le faisons et comme nous l'avons fait par exemple pour les grottes préhistoriques. Or, à la lecture du rapport de l'ICOMOS, il nous est apparu que cette approche n'a pas été suffisamment prise en charge dans l'expertise. Nous avons pu prendre connaissance du dossier technique élaboré par l'État partie qui, de notre point de vue, apporte la preuve formelle de la relation et de la relation structurelle entre le bien et l'activité perlière. Si cette question précisément est réglée, et nous pensons qu'elle est réglée de notre point de vue, elle nous permettra peut-être de considérer la décision de différer pour l'inscription du site dans la liste du patrimoine mondial, tout en me permettant d'insister sur le fait qu'il s'agit du premier site proposé par le Qatar sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Souvenez-vous que le Qatar a été élu au comité du patrimoine mondial parmi les États parties n'ayant pas de site inscrit sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. La confiance ainsi conférée au Qatar par les États parties à la Convention du patrimoine mondial nous commande, je pense aujourd'hui, de l'encourager, considérant qu'il est en train de s'engager dans un secteur d'investissement autour du patrimoine culturel au service de l'humanité. Et je vous remercie.
Dear colleagues, please be brief, because it seems to me that majority of the countries express their opinion that they are in favor to referral, and we can straight go to the draft decision. Please, Iraq, take the floor.
شكرا سيدة الرئيسة. العراق يشكر الدولة العضوة على اختيارها لموقع الزبارة، هذا الموقع الذي يعني الكثير لدول الخليج، لما لهذه المدينة من أهمية وبعد في ذاكرة إنسان الخليج، فتاريخها حاضر في أذهان العديد من قبائلنا العريقة، كما أن موقعها الممثل مركزا للتجارة وريادتها العلمية ورعايتها للعديد من العلماء، وعدم تعرض الموقع للتجاوزات والتغيرات رغم التطور الاقتصادي، مما يؤكد صفتي الأصالة والسلامة. وقد سمعنا الإجراءات التي تمت والجهود التي بذلت بعد التقرير، إضافة إلى التنقيبات الأثرية وما أثبتته من دلائل، ولا ننسى أن هذا الموقع هو الأول للدولة، فدعونا نشيع ثقافة التراث العالمي، نؤيد الجزائر. شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you very much. So now I will give the floor to the rapporteur, and I propose to go through the draft decision paragraph by paragraph. Thank you, rapporteur. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. We have received amendments from the delegation of India, which basically propose to refer the nomination of Al Zubarah archaeological site instead of deferral. You will find the proposed amendments on the screen, and amendments have also been distributed to all of you in hard copy. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Paragraph 1. Are any objections? I see none. So paragraph 2 refers the nomination of Al Zubarah Archaeological Sites Qatar back to the state party in order to allow it to then point 1 further develop its understanding of how the fabric of Al Zubarah and its desert hinterland were an exceptional testimony of a specific interaction between nomadic herders, pearl divers, fishermen and traders that once characterized the way of the life of the Gulf. By I, presenting the results of surveys, excavations carried out in the property and its wider setting, including underwater archaeology, that have already permitted the understanding of the origins of the town, the basis for its prosperity, its layout and how it related to the coast, its desert landscape and small satellite settlements. And point 2, or India, completing the archive and oral history research developed within the project. B, formalize the official approval of the buffer zone limits and the Madinat Ash Shamal urban plan. C, completely implement the conservation strategy, identifying the interventions desirable to stabilize the urban remains. D, follow up the development of the site management unit operational on site since 2011. E, monitor the effectiveness of the management plan. So are any objections to the Article 2 of the draft decision? I see none. Thank you very much. So point 3 recommends the heritage impact assessment be renewed in case major infrastructural projects in the vicinity of the property should become active again in order to ensure that these do not impact adversely on the town and its wider desert setting. Are any objections? I see none. And it was proposed to delete the point 4 of the draft decision. Are any objections? I see none. So now we have to adopt the whole decision. If there are no objections, so we adopt the decision 36.8b.19 Zubarah Archaeological Site, Qatar. No objections is adopted. Thank you very much. And congratulations to State Party that you have the possibility to work hard, I would say, to the next committee. Dear colleagues, now we move on to the next site. Pearling Testimony of an Island Economy, Bahrain. ICOMOS, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We haven't got any. Let's see. Could we have the next slide, please? Where's the previous? We have lost the previous slide. This is the location map. Could we have the next slide, please? This is a referred back nomination. At the last session in Paris, the committee referred back the nomination of Pearling Testimony of an Island Economy back to the State Party in order to allow it to provide a more detailed conservation approach for the urban buildings that set out how the conservation of the original fabric will be optimized. Next slide, please. This new revised nomination has addressed the requests of the committee. The traditional sea use of harvesting pearls from oyster beds in the Arabian Gulf shaped the island of Bahrain's economy for a millennia. As the best-known source of pearls since ancient times, the Gulf industry reached the apex of prosperity at the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th centuries. The wealth of what had become a global trade is reflected in the development of the merchant quarters of Muharraq city. A few distinctive commercial and residential buildings remain as a testimony to this proud but dangerous and demanding economic activity. And this was an activity that suffered a sudden and catastrophic demise in the 1930s as a result of the development of cultured pearls from freshwater mussels. Next slide, please. Pearl exploration is known from Neolithic times and expanded dramatically to meet the demands of the Roman Empire. There was a resurgence in medieval times, and the wealth of pearls led to struggles for control of the area. The stability in the 19th century of the industry is what is reflected in this nomination. Next slide, please. This is a serial nomination of 15 components. Next slide, please. The property includes buildings embedded in the urban fabric of Muharraq city, as well as offshore oyster beds and part of the seashore. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please. What's happened? Are we out of sync? Oh, that's it. Could we have the next slide, please? The link between the oyster beds and Muharraq city was the fleet of pearling dhows owned by merchants. Next slide, please. This link between sea and the city is exemplified by a small stretch of seashore, the only authentic shore still remaining in Muharraq, as the rest have been reclaimed. Next slide, please. At one end of the shore is a small fort And in the revised nomination, the boundary has been extended to encompass its whole footprint. Next slide, please. The shore is still used for ceremonies at the start and the finish. The shore was used for ceremonies at the start and finish of the pearling season. Next slide, please. The nomination includes a range of houses, the best ones that reflect the wealth and prosperity of the pearling industry and different aspects of that wealth. This is the house of a barber and folk healer and includes his treatment rooms. Next slide, please. This El Jalahama house is one of an influential family. As with most buildings, their prosperity came to an end in the 1930s and they've been used minimally ever since, and all need conservation work. Next slide, please. This El Alawi house has one of the few remaining wind towers that draws in the air to cool the house down inside. Next one, please. All the houses, such as this Fakra house, are built with coral stone set in mud mortar and characterized by very high-quality fretted woodwork and elaborate gypsum plaster work. This is the house of a wealthy merchant who had 50 boats. Next slide, please. And this is one of the best preserved of the merchant houses, which had its own guest house. Next slide, please. The nomination includes this row of shops and storerooms that were owned by pearl traders who sold pearls when sold other goods when there were no pearl traders in town. Since the first nomination, these shops have been restored and are now waiting for tenants. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The Siadi complex is the grandest one, owned by one of the grand pearl merchants. The two houses, guest houses, and a mosque have elaborate woodwork imported from Shiraz. Next slide, please. One part of the house is still lived in by the grandson of the builder. Next slide, please. As a result of the collapse of the pearl industry, many buildings now are extremely fragile. In this revised nomination, the State Party has responded to the request of the committee and provided details of how the conservation of these fragile buildings will be addressed. Each of the 17 sites will eventually have a detailed conservation plan which will set out precise prescriptions for each of the component parts, including justifying the approach to be taken for removing additions, replacing missing components, and introducing new services, as well as the overall conservation of the fabric. Next slide, please. The overall cycle for the first phase of conservation works is expected to last until the end of 2017. And this slow timetable has been deliberately allowed so that there can be capacity building on architectural conservation and training on traditional materials and their sources. The State Party has acknowledged that the development of the nomination has highlighted the lack of local capacity for the preservation of vernacular buildings, and this is now being addressed through fostering competencies. Considerable efforts are being put in to ensure that the optimum amount of original fabric is being retained and that there is a recognizable differentiation between the old and new work. Next slide, please. And a dedicated site administration has been set up as well as a steering committee. And a welcome change since the first nomination has been a shift towards seeing the nominated buildings as part of Old Muharraq. And the Ministry of Culture has now drawn up a vision for the development of Old Muharraq, both the sites being nominated and the entire old city of Muharraq, which sets out a holistic approach looking at both legal and societal frameworks. Next slide, please. In the first nomination, the remaining issue to be addressed was conservation. All the other issues had been taken care of. We can now say that the conservation part of that chart has been ticked as well. Next slide, please. Our recommendation is therefore that this site be inscribed on the list on the basis of criterion 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ICOMOS, for these explanations. And I invite state parties to express their comments, if there are any, on this nomination, and to adopt the draft decision concerning this property. Once again, I would like to remind the committee that the draft decision is for inscription. Now the floor is open for comments from the parties. I recognize United Arab Emirates. You have the floor.
شكرا السيد الرئيس. الإمارات تود التعبير عن ابتهاجها لهذا الإدراج لأسباب كثيرة. أولاً لمعرفتنا بفرادة هذه المضامين التي احتوى عليها هذا التسجيل وتنوعها بين الأثري وبين النشاط الإنساني بعيد الأمد، ولذلك استحق هذا الإدراج. المسألة الثانية أن البحرين قدمت نموذج لالتزامها تجاه تنفيذ وخدمة خدمة قضايا التراث العالمي من خلال الفترة الماضية. جميعنا يدرك مدى ما قدمته البحرين من استعداد لدعم أهداف هذه اللجنة وهذه الاتفاقية باستضافة مركز التراث العالمي للمنطقة العربية، وهذا المركز بدأ يؤدي دوره بشكل نثق في أنه سيقدم خدمة مهمة ومطلوبة لهذه المنطقة. المسألة الثالثة ولن أطيل أن البحرين قدمت نموذج في احترام لوائح هذه اللجنة، وعندما قبلت وطلبت من نفسها أنها تنتظر حتى تستوفي ما النواقص التي عبر عنها في هذا الإدراج، واليوم هم يجنون ثمرة هذا الالتزام. نهنئهم من القلب ونشكر إيكوموس على كل الجهود في هذا الصدد.
Thank you, UAE. I note Germany, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Germany appreciates the work which has been done the last year. We fully support the inscription of this exceptional site in the World Heritage List. Congratulations to the State Party.
Thank you, Germany. Colombia, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente. Queremos igualmente felicitar al Estado parte, primero por el maravilloso expediente que presentaron y segundo por el respeto con que aceptaron las decisiones de ICOMOS y de este comité y el proceso ordenado y fructífero al que llegaron. Este es un ejemplo importante para ver que de un defer a un refer, seguir el proceso, se puede llegar a un final feliz y los felicitamos inmensamente. Gracias.
Thank you, Colombia. I give the floor to Mali.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, nous sommes en face d'un site exceptionnel, mais aussi un cas exceptionnel, Monsieur le Président. Si on se rappelle de l'attitude ou bien du comportement tenu par l'État parti de Bahreïn l'année dernière à Paris, tous les États partis, membres du comité de presse, avaient donné leur avis pour l'inscription d'un site de Bahreïn, mais c'est l'État parti de Bahreïn lui-même qui a dit non, donnez-nous encore la chance de mieux approfondir le dossier. Donc ce comportement de l'État de Bahreïn est un comportement honorable, un comportement qui doit être un exemple. Et le Mali soutient le dossier d'inscription. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Mali. I give the floor to Estonia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Estonia is very delighted for this inscription. We would like to point out how this nomination shows us how important is the conceptualization. We don't see here the big monuments. Instead of this, we face in this inscription a row of extremely delicate and fragile small buildings and places which are put together in the line around one human activity. This is really good idea of conceptualization, the whole nomination, which you don't face too often. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cambodia, floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Nous tenons également à féliciter l'État partie. Le rapport de l'ICOMOS a montré que le site désormais répond à l'exigence de l'inscription. Nous appuyons donc cette inscription.
Thank you very much. Algeria.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Donc l'Algérie se joint aux autres intervenants donc, pour soutenir l'inscription et féliciter l'État partie et l'ICOMOS pour le travail qu'ils ont accompli. Merci.
Thank you very much. Serbia.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous soutenons pleinement l'inscription et nous félicitons Bahreïn et nous remercions vraiment pour l'approche de l'année passée, pour la coopération qu'ils ont prouvée en ayant envie que vraiment c'est une proposition extraordinaire. Félicitations et merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. Qatar, floor is yours.
شكرا سيدة الرئيسة. نستطيع الآن نأخذ الكلمة من ضمن أعضاء اللجنة. نشكركم. دولة البحرين دولة شقيقة وصديقة وقريبة من قطر جغرافيا ومشاعرا. يوجد في البحرين معروفة من ضمن دول الخليج بتجارة اللؤلؤ منذ قديم الزمان، ولا زال اللؤلؤ البحريني منتشر، والصاغة البحرينيين معروفين بدقتهم في ذلك في اللؤلؤ وفي صياغة اللؤلؤ والمصوغات المتعلقة باللؤلؤ. يوجد في البحرين قانون يمنع أي استيراد أو تصنيع للؤلؤ الزراعي. يعني لا يوجد في البحرين لمن يريد أن يشتري اللؤلؤ عليه أن يذهب للبحرين. لذلك نحن نؤيد هذا التسجيل ونشكر للبحرين كما ذكر أخونا من مالي، نشكر لهم أنهم هم من رفضوا في العام الماضي أن يتم تسجيل موقع، ونؤيد هذا القرار في تسجيل موقع. شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you very much. We all like pearls. Yes, Russian Federation, please.
Спасибо, уважаемая госпожа председатель. Напоминание о 35-й сессии лишний раз дало нам возможность вспомнить, насколько ответственно Королевство Бахрейн относится к данной номинации. Не буду говорить долго, скажу лишь, что Российская Федерация всячески поддерживает внесение данной номинации в список всемирного наследия. Спасибо.
Thank you very much. Senegal, floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Le Sénégal voudrait faire sienne les déclarations du Mali pour rappeler donc ce qui s'est passé l'année dernière et montrer l'exemple du Bahreïn en exemple. Et donc nous voudrions encourager l'inscription de ce site. Merci.
Thank you very much. So I would ask to put the decision on the screen. Colombia, do you want once more to take the floor? No? Please put the decision on the screen. So the decision is before you. So who are any objections? I see none. So decision
36,20. This one.
36,8b.20 is adopted. Congratulations, State Party.
Thank you, Minister for Culture.
I see the Minister of Culture of Bahrain here, our dear friend. All the best, and Bahrain, you have the floor.
السيدة الرئيسة، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، السيدات والسادة، في البداية أود أن أبارك لكم ولكل أعضاء اللجنة الجهد الكبير الذي تبذلونه لضمان تعزيز اتفاقية التراث العالمي وحماية المواقع المسجلة على قائمة التراث العالمي في كل مناطق العالم وبالذات في المنطقة العربية. وكوني رئيسة السابقة للجنة التراث العالمي أقدر مدى الجهد المبذول داخل هذه اللجنة وخارجها والضغوط الكبيرة والتحديات التي تواجهكم. السيدة الرئيسة، يسعدني أن أكون اليوم بينكم بعد قرار اللجنة بتسجيل موقع اللؤلؤ شاهد على اقتصاد جزيرة. نحن ننتظر هذه اللحظة منذ زمن بعيد، منذ أن كان المشروع مجرد فكرة لتوثيق جزء من تراث وحضارة البحرين والخليج. ولا يسعني هنا سيدتي الرئيسة إلا أن أذكر أعضاء اللجنة بموقف مملكة البحرين أثناء مناقشة الملف في يونيو 2011، والذي حرصت من خلاله البحرين على سحب الملف وإكمال الجزء المتعلق بموضوع الصيانة كما أوصت به الإيكوموس. وكان في وسعنا آنذاك تسجيل موقع في العام الماضي، إلا أننا حرصنا على دعم اللجنة والاتفاقية والانتظار لأن نقدم الملف كما هو عليه الآن حتى يكون مقبولا من الهيئة الاستشارية ومركز التراث العالمي ويتوج بقرار اللجنة. السيدة الرئيسة، اليوم هو يوم فرح لكل شعب البحرين بتسجيل الموقع الثاني على قائمة التراث العالمي. ورغم صغر المساحة الجغرافية لوطني البحرين، إلا أن شواهد الحضارة على هذه الجزيرة تمتد إلى فترة ما قبل التاريخ. اليوم المجتمع المحلي في مدينة المحرق بالتحديد ينتظر بفارق الصبر هذا القرار الذي يعطينا دفعة كبيرة من الأمل للمحافظة على طريق اللؤلؤ ويعكس هوية المجتمع البحريني. أود كذلك أن أبين لكم أيها الأخوات والأخوة أن الأدوات القانونية والخطط الإدارية قد اكتملت وستساعدنا لضمان استمرار الحفاظ على الموقع والاستفادة المتوقعة من قبل المجتمع المحلي، والذي سيكون هو صمام الأمان لصون الموقع بكل مكوناته. السيدة الرئيسة، أجدد شكري وخالص تقديري لكم ولأعضاء اللجنة والهيئة الاستشارية، متمنية لكم كل التوفيق في اجتماعاتكم. مجدد الشكر لكم وطاب يومكم.
Thank you very much, and once more, congratulations from all my heart. Now, dear colleagues, we move on to the other item, Hill Forts of Rajasthan, India. Draft Decision 36-8B.22. ICOMOS, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Since this is a serial nomination, ICOMOS was given 8 minutes for the presentation. Thank you. The state party submitted a letter of factual errors, which was carefully reviewed, and ICOMOS acknowledges that some factual errors have occurred in the evaluation of this nomination, and ICOMOS apologizes for these. The information on these errors has been distributed to the honorable members of the committee. Hill Forts of Rajasthan, India. The Hill Forts of Rajasthan are a serial nomination of 5 sites which have been selected to present the typological and stylistic development of Rajput defensive architecture from the 13th to the 19th century. The hill forts provide testimony to the alternating relations between the Rajput and the Sultanate and Mughal empires, as well as the frictions between the different Rajput kingdoms. They include fortification walls, palace structures, temples, memorials, and water tanks that were built in hilly territories to utilize the natural defense features. The serial property is formed by 5 hill fort sites: Chittorgarh Fort, Kumbhalgarh Fort, Ranthambore Fort, Gagran Fort, and Amber Fort. All 5 hill forts are located in the southeastern part of the Indian state of Rajasthan. Chittorgarh Fort is located to the immediate east of Chittorgarh city and covers an area of 305 hectares. It is surrounded by a 4.5-kilometer-long wall and a 45-degree hill slope, which made it almost inaccessible to enemies. The fort complex comprises 65 historic built structures, among them palace complexes like the Rana Kumbha Palace and temples such as the Hindu Kalikamata Temple. The Jain Satish Devri and the Jain Digamba Temple.
Excuse me. Please, silence in the room. Dear colleagues, I would ask you, congratulations, give out of this room. Thank you very much. So, ICOMOS.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Two tower memorials, Kirti Stamp and Vijay Stamp, and let me at this point apologize to the Indian delegation for all my mispronunciations of these beautiful names, and a system of water reservoirs. Kumbhalgarh Fort is located in the district of Rajsamand and controlled the border between the Mewar and the Marwar Rajput territories. It has commanding views over the Kumbhalgarh Wildlife Sanctuary. The outer walls of Kumbhalgarh Fort extend to a length of 14 kilometers, enforced by semicircular structures which dominate the external view of the fort. Kumbhalgarh Fort includes a palace area and several Hindu and Jain temples, as well as water reservoirs and step wells. Ranthambore Fort is nominated with an area of 102 hectares. The hill fort, which is surrounded by a dense forest and jungle, and therefore can also be considered a forest fort, is entered via a steep zigzag ascent through several gateways in its fortification walls. Its religious buildings are mostly Hindu temple structures, but also include a historic mosque. And besides the 3 lakes in its buffer zone, the fort contains water wells and reservoirs. Gagran Fort is located at the confluence of Ahu and Kali Sindh rivers. It is the only fort which, in addition to its location on a hill outcrop, is surrounded by 2 rivers and presents the typology of a hill water fort. Entered via a steep ascent through 2 gateways, it contains a palace area and several temples and shrines. Amber Fort, most commonly known as Amber Palace, is located in a valley close to the city of Jaipur. The Rajput Palace structure is placed on an outcrop in the valley near Mahato Lake. The primary function of Amber Palace was the seat of power of the Kushwaha Rajput. Amber Palace is situated below the fort of Jaigarh, which can be seen on the hill peak in the lower photograph, and was constructed to defend the palace and village. Amber Palace is designed in a typical Mughal layout of successive courtyards entered through decorative gates. While the first courtyards are public with representative function, the later ones are private and reserved to the ruling family. The palace also includes gardens and a sophisticated hydraulic system which transports water from the Maota Lake below. For the Amber components, the property does not include the fortification walls, here in green, or the hilltop Jaigarh Fort, here in yellow. The property is restricted to the palace itself in red, while the walls of the hill fort defense lie in the buffer zone. ICOMOS judged integrity in relation to the ability of the components to cover all attributes needed to express outstanding universal value. It concluded that the properties selected did not, as a collection, provide the most significant selection of forts, as was set out in the rationale, and that the selection is not fully representative of the formation and alliances of Rajput states and the development of Rajput architecture. The state party suggested that other sites may be added later. However, ICOMOS is in no position to judge the integrity of potential future additions, but needs to consider on the basis of the material that has been presented. ICOMOS regrets that changes of the exterior plaster of some of the property components, in particular Gagron and amber, had an impact on the authenticity of the property. The comparative analysis, although adequate on an international level, did not convincingly illustrate how the selection presented could be the most representative or significant selection of Rajput hill forts or Rajput military architecture in general. ICOMOS felt that other more significant forts existed and that the rationale for their exclusion remained unclear. ICOMOS noted that while individual property components may have potential to illustrate outstanding universal value, either as individual sites or in a newly conceptualized serial nomination, the series as presented could not justify any of the criteria. The boundaries of Ranthambore Fort are adequate, but all other components would require in part significant revisions. The legal protection of Gagron and Amber Fort is not yet at the national level. The state of conservation of some architectural structures, in particular temples in the remote parts of the larger forts of Chittorgarh and Kumbhalgarh, is critical, with a high degree of decay and dilapidation. The management plans provided for the property contain adequate policy guidelines, but should be supplemented by more detailed action plans for implementation. ICOMOS further recommends to employ additional security and maintenance personnel. ICOMOS considers that the selection of the hill forts presented does not combine the most significant examples of the various categories of Rajput military fort architecture. ICOMOS would like to offer its advice as part of the upstreaming process to assist in the review of potential outstanding universal value of other Rajput forts, to identify with the local experts and authorities the most outstanding individual sites or a new series to be presented. In conclusion, ICOMOS recommends to not inscribe the serial nomination of the hill forts of Rajasthan on the World Heritage List. ICOMOS recognizes the importance of the theme of Rajput military architecture and defensive technology and encourages the state party to prepare a new nomination for a series of sites that present the various categories of Rajput military architecture and the whole range of the Rajput kingdom's physiographical terrain. ICOMOS would like to once again offer its advisory services in this process. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, floor is open. Colombia, please take the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Le agradecemos a ICOMOS la información que nos acaba de dar. Sin embargo, como ustedes saben, el Estado parte nos ha presentado todos sus errores factuales y quisiera que ICOMOS nos pudiera contestar sobre ellos, puesto que estos tienen una implicación directa en el valor universal excepcional. Estos son puntos importantes, como por ejemplo que se tomó que la manera que se hizo el análisis es que todos los fuertes estaban en la montaña, cuando hemos visto aquí en la presentación que efectivamente están en distintos, topográficamente en distintas regiones. Igualmente en la historia, como se interpretó perdón, por ICOMOS, es distinta a las respuestas del Estado parte. Igualmente quisiera dar la palabra al Estado parte, puesto que ICOMOS se cuestiona por qué hubo exclusión de ciertos fuertes, y yo creo que el Estado parte tiene una respuesta para esto. Gracias, señora Presidenta.
Thank you very much. Russian Federation, floor is yours.
Благодарю, уважаемая госпожа председатель, уважаемые коллеги. Мы хотели бы также поблагодарить ИКОМОС за представленный отчет, он является весьма интересным. Одновременно нам кажется, что ценность номинации не нуждается в дополнительных комментариях, даже на фотографиях это производит весьма сильное впечатление. Знаем, что многое сделано для сохранения этого объекта и внесения его в список всемирного наследия, и что с учетом состояния рядом объектов, это надо делать достаточно быстро. Насколько мы можем судить, государство-участник направила всю запрошенную ИКОМОС документацию, включая исчерпывающий процесс отбора, основанный на физиографических образованиях и культурных зонах Раджастана. Вместе с тем, государство-участник выборочно включило в номинацию лишь 5 компонентов, представляющих 3 различных категории фортов, из юго-восточной зоны и предоставила адекватное обоснование для последующего включения фортов из западного региона. Очевидно, надо признать, что теперь серия выглядит законченной в юго-восточной части Раджастана и должна приниматься как таковая. Хотели бы понять, в чем причина несогласия. Спасибо.
Thank you very much. Ethiopia, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethiopia would like to commend the explanations made by ICOMOS. And as I have my colleagues explained it well, if we give the state party to explain a few of the clarity demanding questions made by ICOMOS. Thank you.
Senegal, floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je voudrais me féliciter du rapport de l'ICOMOS et retenir le fait que bon, le seul problème, c'est au niveau du fort de collines. Et si j'ai bien compris les documents, il y avait une série de 4 forts, dont les 3 ont été satisfaits par l'État parti. Je voudrais, moi, avoir beaucoup plus d'informations sur ces forts de collines de la part de ICOMOS ou de l'État parti. Mais je pense que l'État parti pourrait nous dire donc toutes les réponses qu'elle compte apporter sur les incriminations de ICOMOS. Merci.
Thank you very much. Thailand, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Examining India's dossier, I have 2 comments to make. Firstly, with regard to the selection of 5 fortresses by the state party for serial nomination, there are over 30 significant fortresses in Rajasthan. Apart from the criteria and such justification of OUV, the issues of ownership is also a divisive factor in which dictates India's selection. The state party deliberately chose to exclude certain fortresses which are privately owned because the government cannot be expected to enforce the protection on properties not belonging to the state. Secondly, on the issues of typology of these fortresses, it appears that the classification made by ICOMOS contained oversights and ignored the complex physio-geographical terrain and the historical context in which these forts were built. The rebuttal statement prepared by India made it very clear. My delegation believes that India's choices are sound and balanced, representing a good variety of privately owned fortification in the area. Given that there is no need to correct some factual errors in the dossier, I would recommend that the committee consider granting India a referral to allow them more time and another opportunity to resubmit additional information by 2013. Meanwhile, I urge that a mission be sent on an exceptional basis as part of the upstream process to take care of the factual errors and gaps in the evaluation of the dossiers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Switzerland, floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Quand on discute des biens sériels et des dispositions pour ces biens sériels, on retombe souvent sur la même question cruciale qui a d'ailleurs été discuté largement lors de la réunion d'experts internationale qui a eu lieu à Ittingen en 2010. Et c'est la sélection des biens pour la série sur la base d'une sorte d'analyse comparative interne de tous les biens qui entrent en question. Dans le cas présent, il y a apparemment plus de forts qui auraient peut-être une valeur supérieure ou qui contribueraient d'une manière plus significative à la valeur universelle exceptionnelle de l'ensemble et qui auront donc dû être prises en compte et que l'État partie, par contre, pour des raisons internes, n'a pas considéré. Dès lors, nous pensons qu'un renvoi ne aidera pas à l'État partie de mener à bien cette candidature parce qu'un renvoi rendra impossible de changer des éléments constitutifs de la série, d'en ajouter peut-être un ou deux qui maintenant n'ont pas été pris en considération. Et nous envoyons avec un renvoi l'État partie dans la situation compliquée de ne pas pouvoir adapter cette candidature comme il faut pour arriver à une valeur universelle exceptionnelle. Il y a d'ailleurs aussi la question des délimitations qui a été posée, qui devrait être revue, ce qui ne peut pas être fait non plus avec un renvoi. Donc, à notre avis, si on veut, est-ce que nous souhaitons que ces forts soient un jour inscrits sur la liste du patrimoine mondial, il faudra mieux faire un différé au lieu d'un renvoi, parce que ça permettra de revoir cette candidature dans son ensemble. Et bien sûr, on perdra une année, mais qu'est-ce que c'est une année en vue de la longue histoire de ces forts et la longue histoire du patrimoine mondial. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. Qatar, floor is yours.
شكرا سيدة الرئيسة. سأكون مختصرا في مداخلتي. نعتقد أن بالإمكان إعطاء الدولة الطرف فرصة لتقديم الملف في العام القادم لاستكمال جميع الجوانب الناقصة فيه. شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you very much. Serbia floor. No. Serbia floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Let me first of all thank ICOMOS for the report. From the other side, we would like to congratulate India and the state of Rajasthan for excellent nomination. What we would like as delegation is also to support the proposal to give the opportunity to the state party, if necessary, for further explanations or clarification. But with regret, we are ready to support the proposal for a referral. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cambodia.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. I would be very brief. First, just to support the proposal made by Colombia, because we are particularly interested to know about the process of the factual error that has been submitted by the State Party of India, because it represents the credibility check, it represents the clarities in the process. It's important for the whole process of nomination, and it's important for the committee as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Of course, I will give the floor to ICOMOS to clarify the item. Germany, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I suppose that there is a draft statement of outstanding universal value submitted with the nomination dossier by the State Party. I'd like to ask ICOMOS whether for all the components of the sites, the criteria are in doubt, or only for a few, for some of the 5 components of the series. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, United Arab Emirates.
شكرا سيدة الرئيسة. الإمارات تتفق مع من سبقنا في الحديث على إمكانية تبيان مما شاهدناه على الشريحة القيمة الاستثنائية لهذه المواقع. أو هذا الموقع التسلسلي، ونرى ونثق في إمكانات الدولة الطرف، فهي مقتدرة ولها باع طويل في أعمال هذه اللجنة. أرى أنها في إمكانيتها أن تستشعر هذه المشاغل التي عبرت عنها إيكوموس، وعندما نسمع منها ستوضح لنا الكثير من الردود في هذا الشأن. لكن ثقة في الدولة الطرف الإمارات تؤيد الإرجاء.
Thank you very much. Algeria, please take the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous félicitons l'Inde pour cette proposition et l'ICOMOS pour le rapport établi. Nous demandons ici, plusieurs voix demandent à ce que ce dossier ne soit pas retenu. D'autres demandent des informations précises et se demandent si l'État partie est en mesure d'apporter les réponses dans un temps d'une année. Nous disons qu'il n'y a pas, nous n'avons pas une échelle de mesure mathématique de la notion de renvoi. Ce n'est qu'un intervalle de temps qu'il faut donner à l'État partie pour nous répondre l'année prochaine. Et c'est pour cela que nous nous joignons aux voix qui demandent le renvoi. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. South Africa. South Africa, please take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the interest of time, we'll be brief to the point. South African delegation chair believes that a referral will make it possible for the state party to clarify the issues, because here we're dealing with a progressive process. More information, the better we understand. Therefore, Chair, like other parties, we request that India be given the floor to tell the committee if they are able to meet the requirements through a referral process. South Africa emphasized that a referral is the proposed way to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now I would like to give the floor to ICOMOS to answer the questions. In particular, factual errors have been not communicated by ICOMOS, and to precise the components of the sites which are not rejected. Yeah, thank you. ICOMOS, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. The factual errors have been communicated. They have been distributed in writing to the honorable members of the committee. ICOMOS would like to respond to the questions that were posed by Colombia, Russia, and Senegal alike as to the various typologies of forts represented in the nomination. As you can see in our written report, we acknowledge that Gagron could also be considered a water fort and that Rantzambore could also be considered a forest fort. However, the justification proposed by the state party focused on the category of hill forts, and the comparative analysis was only conducted for hill forts, so no other water or forest forts were compared to outline that those that were included could also act as representative or significant examples for those two categories. With regard to the issue of private ownership of some properties, we acknowledge that perhaps some of the other significant examples of hill forts in India may be under private ownership. However, a number of World Heritage properties are under private ownership, and ICOMOS does not think that it should be led in its judgment of outstanding universal value by the question whether the property is owned by the state or in private individual, as we are trying to identify the most outstanding properties that are existing in the world. Lastly, I'd like to respond to the question posed by Germany on the criteria as to which the individual properties are proposed and whether these criteria are fulfilled. In fact, not all of the 5 properties are proposed under all the criteria suggested, which means in the nomination proposed by the state party, some properties only fulfill some of the criteria, which is a conceptual problem. But in the current serial composition, ICOMOS does not think that criteria have been justified for any of the properties under the theme presented at this moment. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you very much. And now I give the floor to the state party. Please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will respond to the queries regarding the process of selection of components for the hill forts. The state of Rajasthan, which is roughly comparable in area to the country of France in northwestern India, has several significant forts of varying scale, which were historic strongholds of the medieval Rajput warrior class. Considering the unique adaptations of Rajput hill defense architecture across varying topography, including hilly terrains with deserts, plateaus, rocky plateaus, and water areas, and the significance of narrating the Rajput polity within this setting of its interweaving historic cultural zones, the state party had made a judicious selection of the most outstanding and representative forts for this nomination. We had undertaken an exhaustive and methodical selection of the 5 forts, which was based on the physiographic terrain and the cultural subzones within Rajasthan. The Rajasthan region has unique physiography. It is roughly divided into 2 parts by the Aravalli mountain range at an angle of 45 degrees if we look at the map of Rajasthan, which was shown by ICOMOS earlier. It has on its eastern side the hilly, fertile and semi-humid area with 5 cultural zones. And on the western side, the entire stretch is basically the desert region with a single cultural zone of Marwar. The first step involved an exhaustive listing of all the existing Rajput forts of Rajasthan in the various geographical and cultural zones to arrive at a list of the most outstanding and representative forts among these based on their physiographic terrain variations and cultural areas. While the initial selection of outstanding forts resulted in more than 5 hill forts, these were further evaluated for the best physiographic adaptations, selecting a wide variation on the hilly terrain, including forts located in the forest area, water and hill ranges, and isolated plateaus. Then secondly, we looked at representative of major phases of Rajput defense architecture, that is early medieval, medieval and late period ranging from 13th to 16th centuries, or in specific cases entirely unique representatives of a single phase. And then we looked at the authenticity and integrity of each of these, and lastly the management, protection and ownership of these forts. The final 5 hill forts that are located in the eastern hilly fertile region of Rajasthan with substantial portion of buffer zone areas of each fort being protected by forest areas. This additional protection of buffer zone strengthens the management of the selected components because they have landscape linkages and protection mechanism which is similar. While Western Rajasthan has 2 to 3 representative and outstanding forts that have outstanding universal value, but they were not taken as part of the serial property in this first phase because the forts in Western Rajasthan, first of all, do not share the landscape linkage. As I mentioned, it's the Aravalli range that splits Rajasthan into 2 parts. So the Western Rajasthan is primarily desert area and there is no protection of buffer forest protection as seen in the other 5 components. And the other reason is that these forts are undergoing conservation measures. We do intend to nominate it as the next phase in the series. And some of them are privately owned properties of the erstwhile Rajput kings and hence unprotected. The 5 sites that were finally selected were based on an internal analysis comparing the component parts of the serial nomination to ensure that the contribution of each component exists to the outstanding universal value. The contribution of each component is there for the integrity or completeness of the serial property, and that existing linkages of the 5 components add to an effective protection and an agreed management framework. These 5 components of the hill forts are the most outstanding and most extant Rajput forts in Rajasthan, taking into considerations issues of authenticity, integrity, and management. However, an extension of the series may be considered in a few years' time as addition of a minimum of 1 representative fort from the desert region of Western Rajasthan will definitely enhance the integrity, and the state party has committed to this in the additional information as well as the tentative listing for the forts. A few forts that qualify as outstanding and cannot be included in the nominated property as they are unprotected and privately owned. This is an important contextual issue of erstwhile royal families residing in Rajasthan region of India that is crucial to understand for this serial nomination. And we have in dialogue with ICOMOS discussed this in great detail. We agree with the last point which is there in the draft decision, because that's the rationale for our selection of the fort. That is how we arrived at the resultant 5 forts, because of all these constraints that are there, which we have committed to extending the series in future, which is as per the paras for serial nomination in the operational guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see the delegations raise their nameplates, and I would like to ask you to be very brief, and we straight go to the decision. Franz, floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. J'ai entendu à l'instant de la part d'ICOMOS le fait qu'elle relève que les éléments qui constituent cette série ne remplissent pas tous les critères qui sont visés. Cette façon de raisonner ne me paraît pas bonne, et il me semble qu'elle est contraire d'ailleurs à ce qui est explicitement écrit dans les orientations au paragraphe 137. C'est l'ensemble de la série, c'est la série comme un ensemble, et c'est nécessairement l'ensemble est différent de la somme des parties, hein, et c'est l'ensemble de la série qui doit remplir les critères et non tous les éléments pris individuellement qui la composent. Et je tiens d'ailleurs à cette distinction car elle est fondamentale pour l'idée même d'un bien en série. Je vous remercie, Madame.
Thank you very much. United Arab Emirates, floor is yours.
شكرا سيدة الرئيسة. عندما تدخلت في المداخلة السابقة بخصوص هذا الموقع ربما كان هناك لبس لغوي، لأني أتكلم بالعربي وخلط بين التعديل والرد، وأنا عبرت في حينها بثقتنا في الدولة الطرف وقدرتها على التعامل مع مشاغل الإيكوميرس، ولذلك نحن نرى ريفير التعديل في هذه الحالة، وبعد ما بينتها دولة الطرف من شروحات ربما أثق بأنها ستزيل كثير من اللبس الذي أثير حول هذه المواقع وهذا الموقع المتسلسل. شكرا.
Thank you very much. Switzerland, floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. J'aimerais tout d'abord remercier beaucoup l'État partie des explications extrêmement utiles et encourageantes qui nous ont été données. Et à la lumière de ce que nous avons entendu, nous aimerions aussi demander à l'État partie ou le prier de considérer quand même la possibilité de différer la candidature plutôt que la renvoyer. Parce qu'il nous semble, après toute la discussion, que la valeur universelle exceptionnelle, elle n'est justement pas encore clairement établie et qu'il y ait toujours la possibilité d'adapter la série aussi, donc la composition de la série. Et si nous renvoyons la candidature, l'État partie n'aura pas cette possibilité et se trouvera dans la situation douloureuse de ne pas pouvoir avancer pour proposer une candidature qui aura du succès dans les années à venir. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. So maybe we have two opinions about referral and deferral. Maybe I ask the state party to clarify, if they have the possibility, to fulfill the demand of referral during this short time and fulfill all necessary demands from the committee to be inscribed, let's say, next year. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, we actually began with the third possibility, which was not to inscribe. So actually there were three, but it is contingent actually on ICOMOS, and I'd prefer, Madam Chair, to give them the floor. We would, of course, invite a mission immediately, and we think we can do it if ICOMOS has the capacity, the conviction, and the courage to do it, which we would happily do.
Thank you very much. So now I would like to give the floor to ICOMOS. Are they ready during this short time to help the country to fulfill all the necessary? ICOMOS, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. ICOMOS is always willing and ready to assist countries as much as it is possible. However, I would like to remind you that ICOMOS had a general question as to the selection of the 5 components, and that a referral is not usually the format in which a new selection of components to a Syria nomination is presented, as new components would certainly need to be visited by a full evaluation expert mission, which would not be possible in the timescale after new material would be received by 1st of February. ICOMOS would be willing to assist the state party in any format in an advisory mission. However, we have doubts that the time frame given by a referral would allow the state party to make significant revisions to the selection currently presented. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would like to give the floor to the state party. Please.
Thank you, Madam. That makes it very clear. We do not propose to provide significant, substantial additional information. We expect the mission to focus on the serious errors of fact which have been acknowledged by ICOMOS. We expect the mission to close the gap, the common gap in our understanding and their understanding, which they have referred to as well. And therefore, we believe that if the mission comes out very quickly and submits its report by August or September, we would be in a position to meet and comply with the requirements. I understand the concerns of Switzerland, the genuine concerns of Switzerland, but this is what we believe is possible. This is what we believe is warranted. We would ask for referral with a mission immediately.
Thank you very much. Can we move on to the draft decision? Mali, please, floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Madame la Présidente, vu la disponibilité de l'État parti et les efforts déjà entrepris, le Mali également rejoint la proposition de renvoi. Merci.
Thank you very much. So you have, I give the floor to the rapporteur.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We receive amendments from the part of the delegation of Utopia, which basically proposes to refer the nomination of Hill Forts of Rajasthan, India, back to the state party. Now that I have the floor, Madam Chair, I just want to inform the committee members that there is a concordance error between the French and the English version. In the French version, as you can see, the proposal of Utopia is to delete paragraph 3, while this was not struck out in the English version. So please consider that the proposal includes the deletion of paragraph 3. Thank you.
Yes, we speak on the screen. It is right version, and in the paper it was proposed a deletion, yes? So, as usual, let's go point by point. So, yes, please, may I give the floor to our reporter, and she will do this work. Yes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry. So paragraph 5, there are no amendments, Madam Chairperson.
So are any objections? Switzerland, Estonia. Yes, please, Switzerland, floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. J'aimerais remercier notre rapporteur qui fait un travail exceptionnel, effectivement, pour nous avoir rendu attentifs aux erreurs qu'il y a entre les deux textes. Malheureusement, elle n'en a trouvé qu'une, moi j'en ai trouvé 5 ou 6. Alors, j'aimerais, avant que nous commencions le texte, revenir là-dessus. Et je commencerai peut-être par le texte anglais, si vous me permettez. Je pense qu'il y a clairement une erreur au point 2C en anglais. Tout à la fin, il y a le mot « information », alors que pour moi, ça doit être « nomination », parce que sinon, la phrase, qui de toute façon ne veut rien dire, ne dit encore moins avec cela. Je viens maintenant au texte français. Le texte français ne peut pas se lire comme cela. Je pense qu'on doit dire décide, si on reprend le texte de l'Éthiopie, décide de renvoyer la proposition d'inscription des forts de collines du Rajasthan, Inde, à l'État partie. On ne peut pas dire afin de proposer, parce qu'il s'agit de permettre à l'État partie de proposer et de donner. Et du coup, le point C n'a rien à voir dans cette série, et je propose qu'il devienne un point numéro 3, parce que la syntaxe est différente, puisqu'il s'agit là d'une recommandation et pas d'une proposition. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Rapporteur.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and thank you to the distinguished ambassador of Switzerland. Just to say that, well, thank you for this clarification. The original proposed amendments are the English ones. This word information was provided by the delegation of Ethiopia. I guess that when making the translation, they put inscription, but you are totally right. It should be nomination. And yes, indeed, Madam Chairperson, I guess that we could have little c as a new paragraph 3. And now that I have the floor, I may propose that on paragraph 2, to be consistent with the other decisions of the committee, we decide to refer the nomination of the hill forts of Rajasthan, India, so that the state party be in a position 2, and then we have little a and little b.
Thank you very much. Estonia, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Estonia is very excited to see the marvelous hill forts of Rajasthan to be inscribed in the list in the future. But on the moment we believe that this nomination needs more time and work, and therefore, in our opinion, a referral needlessly limits the options available to the state party to refine its nomination. It would also rule out the possibility for an expert mission to the site. For these reasons, we would propose an amendment to replace the refer with defer in this paragraph 2. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. But as I saw here, and all members of the committee express their opinion, and the majority is for referral. I know that Switzerland and your delegation is for deferral. So even to seek the consensus in this, after the all explanation of the state party of ICOMOS, that they are ready to work hard to bring the full nomination next year, or even referral don't permit it even longer time. Maybe you will agree with the referral to seek the consensus. Estonia, are you agree? Okay, so we can move to the draft decision. Reporter, please read the draft decision. Point 1, paragraph 1 of the draft decision, so it's no objections, adopted. So please read the paragraph 2.
Paragraph 2 decides to refer the nomination of the Hill Force of Rajasthan, India, so that the state party can be in a position to A. Provide a more detailed approach for the selection of the components to show that they present the various categories of Rajput military architecture in the whole range of the Rajput kingdom's physiographical terrain. B. Provide more information on management of the 5 components under the 4th Apex Advisory Committee and the overarching authority for the serial nomination.
Are anybody against such paragraph? I see none, so adopted. Paragraph 3. Reporter, please.
I think, Madam Chairperson, that we will need to change a little bit and just to say recommends the state party. We didn't have another recommends before, so just to say it recommends that the state party may request an advisory mission to the site or discusses other forms of dialogue to encourage the upstream process for ICOMOS, which is essential for this nomination.
Colombia, please.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Simplemente que estamos recomendando que el Estado parte pida una misión, no que pueda pedir, sino que pida una misión. Ese es creo que la intención del Estado parte, que sea algo assertive, que pida la misión, quitar el may. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Switzerland, floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Moi je propose la suppression des mots pour l'ICOMOS, car le processus en amont est intéressant pour tout le monde. Et c'est nous, État parti, qui avons pensé qu'il était utile de s'engager dans cette voie. Et donc ce n'est pas pour l'ICOMOS, c'est afin d'encourager le processus en tant que tel, qui est essentiel pour cette proposition d'inscription. Merci Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. I see no other corrections, so may consider that nobody object this paragraph as amended, or this part it is requests, yes, S in the end of the requests and advisory mission. But we will correct all, literature mistakes afterwards. So, as I understand, it's no objection, so adopted. Now we have to adopt the whole resolution. Resolution 36-8B.22, Hill Forts of Rajasthan, India, is adopted as amended. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, now we move on to the next property. It's Masjid-e-Jasmeh of Isfahan, Iran, Islamic Republic of Iran. So it is draft decision 36-8B.23, and I give the floor to ICOMOS.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Masjid-e-Jasmeh of Isfahan is the oldest congregational mosque in Iran and illustrates a sequence of architectural and decorative styles covering 12 centuries in one single structure. It is also the first example of a 4-Ivan courtyard mosque and therefore became a prototype in Islamic architecture. Masjid-e-Jasmeh is located in the city of Isfahan and is nominated as a monument of approximately 2 hectares with a buffer zone of 18 hectares. The mosque is located in the dense fabric of the historic bazaar. The mosque has several entrances from this historic bazaar, and the centerpiece of the mosque is the courtyard, which continues to be used for the daily prayers. The Nizam al-Mulk dome is the first example of a gradual transition between a square plan and a circular dome, and also the first which uses the so-called tarkina ribs as load-bearing framework. The Taj al-Mulk dome, the second dome, copied the same technique but perfected its proportions. The Fort Ivan, constructed during the Seljuk period, became the prototype for mosque layout in the Eastern Islamic Empire. The successive phases of expansion are illustrated in layout plans of different building stages, as well as three-dimensional models which show the successive extensions of the mosque over time. Although Seljuk constructions are the 484 vaulted domes of different patterns in the Shabestan hypostyle mosque, as well as the skillful wall decorations and muqarnas in the Ivans. While ICOMOS considers that the Masjid-i-Jami demonstrates outstanding universal value, it is concerned about the Meydan-i-Atiq project currently underway in the area here indicated by a red line to the immediate east of the mosque. It introduces an open representative square in the dense urban structure of Isfahan. This three-dimensional model shows that the northwestern corner reaches immediately up to the property boundary, the outer wall. While the first drawings provided the project was physically attached to the mosque, Iran has submitted revised drawings which now foresee connections to historic shops outside the mosque and leave a few meters distance to the mosque gate. ICOMOS thinks that the structural connection to the bazaar shops may still transfer loads to the historic mosque walls. As the State Party foresees events on the square to host up to 25,000 people, a large group of which may access the square through the narrow way alongside the mosque, the limited distance is still an issue. ICOMOS considers that further review of the project is essential and offers its advice in this process. ICOMOS considers that the property has met the conditions of integrity and authenticity and that the comparative analysis is adequate. ICOMOS confirms that criterion 2 is justified but does not see other criteria demonstrated. The boundaries of the property and buffer zone are adequate. Legal protection of the buffer zone needs to be established, in particular through its integration in the Isfahan Master Plan and municipal bylaws. While the state of conservation is acceptable, a long-term conservation plan should be finalized. The management authorities are well defined, however, responsibilities for action, timeframes, and indicators for quality assessment are currently not. ICOMOS considers that a comprehensive integrated management plan should be drafted and adopted. In summary, ICOMOS recommends that the examination of Masjid-i-Jami be deferred to strengthen the protection of the buffer zone, develop an integrated conservation and management plan, and carefully revise the Meydan-i-Atiq project to ensure that no impact on the historic mosque structure occurs. An ample passage space for pedestrians be provided, the overall design is appropriate to the traditional urban character, and a revised implementation schedule be foreseen. A comprehensive heritage impact assessment should be conducted for any revised project design. ICOMOS confirms its availability for an advisory mission to assist in this revision. Finally, ICOMOS recommends to maintain the principle of minimum intervention for information panels, give priority to urgent conservation concerns, and highlight to the importance of heritage impact assessments as a standard procedure of any project approval in the site or its setting. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Floor is open. India, please take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank ICOMOS for that very clear and comprehensive presentation. I have a number of issues and some confusion. As I understand it, this is one of the outstanding, civilizationally outstanding examples of architectures, number one. Number two, this is one that has been emulated across Central Asia and, in fact, even in India and Pakistan. It is the model for much of what happened later. Number three, it is the oldest congregational mosque that you could come across and is still functioning. I followed the presentation and I have the following doubts. What you're saying is that an exhaustive comparative analysis has been provided with the important mosques. ICOMOS requested additional comparative analysis, and this has, I understand, been provided by the state party. Now, in terms of the criteria, the state party nominated under 5 criteria, you have considered, ICOMOS has considered criteria 2 to be valid, so the essential requirements of moving ahead are met. But even in terms of the others, there is a rejection of some of the state party's explanations that although the introduction of the 4-to-1 layout is a reference for later mosque complexes, this is not a creative innovation. Madam Chair, I would submit that creativity, creation, innovation has occurred over a period of time. If you see the mosque development through this region, this is the precursor. And very naturally, this is something that has happened and taken place. Now, ICOMOS considers in criteria 4 that the description of the Taj is the most perfect dome ever created, which I would agree with, based on its ideal proportions and fine workmanship, could fall under this criteria. I could go further down the list, but the point is you have one criteria, and very frankly, the others seem to be met also. So the evaluation seems to be, let me say, a little inconsistent in terms of the significance of the structure, and this is one of the most significant mosques in the world. Now, does it have adequate conservation and management systems? The conservation work, as I understand it, and this is there in the additional information, has always used traditional material and the traditional protection mechanisms that are in place. In fact, the evaluation says that in conclusion, ICOMOS considers that the present state of conservation is adequate, but that a long-term conservation plan needs to be prepared. Now, there are other issues, and I could return to them, but I think that the recommendation does not justify, or let me say, under-emphasizes the analysis. And you could actually go much forward into inscription, I would submit. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Estonia, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Estonia would like to congratulate Iran on this nomination of one of the most important mosques, not only in Iran, and there is no doubt, for us at least, about its outstanding universal value. However, as already stressed by ICOMOS, Isfahan is a very large city and it's a dense city, and therefore new development pressure in the vicinity of the mosque, especially the Meydan Atik project, already underway, is clearly a threat, and therefore more stringent measures should be taken to protect the integrity and authenticity of the site before it be inscribed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Qatar.
شكرا سيدة الرئيسة. نحن لدينا سؤال، نشكر الأيكوموس على تقريرها، ولدينا سؤال للدولة الطرف. بالنظر لتقرير الأيكوموس حول مشروع ميدان عتيق وأنه متصل بالجدار التاريخي للمسجد ومشكلة الممر الخاص بالمشاة، نود أن نطرح على الدولة الطرف، نطلب منها أن توافينا بمعلومات واضحة حول ذلك. ونعتقد بأن هذه هي النقطة الرئيسية التي وردت في تقرير الأيكوموس والتي قادتها لموضوع أو لاقتراح التأجيل ديفرال. فنتمنى من الدولة الطرف أن توافينا بمعلومات وافية حول هذا الموضوع. شكرا.
Thank you very much. Mexico, floor is yours.
Gracias, señora presidenta. También agradecemos, por supuesto, la información que proporciona ICOMOS con respecto a este impresionante monumento. He tenido la oportunidad de estar en Irán recientemente y visité Isfahán. Y esta es una mezquita que tiene un valor incontestable. Desde nuestro punto de vista es uno de los puntos cúlmines del arte de esa región y de la arquitectura de ese país. Es, por supuesto, una de las mezquitas más antiguas en donde se junta un crisol de 12 siglos de historia en la zona del altiplano iraní. Quisiéramos preguntar al Estado parte, porque creo que ICOMOS fue muy enfático en hablar de problemas en la zona de amortiguamiento. Quisiéramos preguntar y agregando también a lo dicho por el honorable representante de Qatar, también es un asunto que quisiéramos ver aclarado por el Estado parte, cuáles han sido las medidas que se toman en esta zona aledaña y limítrofe con la zona núcleo del bien nominado. Muchas gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you very much. South Africa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. South African delegation would like to express its appreciation to the Islamic Republic of Iran for having identified this unique cultural site for the protection and preservation of the Islamic religion to be given to the world, to be appreciated by the future generations. We further, Chair, would like also to thank ICOMOS for what a clear report. To the South African delegation, Madam Chair, it's clear that the draft decision at hand required the state party to go and do more work on this nomination so that it can be discussed here and decided upon. Chair, one point that we would like to flag, looking at the map, which is one of the concerns of ICOMOS, was the envisaged possible development on the northwestern part of the site in the buffer zone. We would like, Madam Chair, if that's a contentious issue, we would like the state party to clarify this. Perhaps we'll come back. But it's our view that this site indeed qualifies for inscription. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I hope the state party fix all the questions. Germany, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank ICOMOS for the report and for the confirmation that authenticity and integrity and at least one criteria is confirmed. We'd like to ask the state party which measures are taken to address the concerns of ICOMOS concerning the developments in the surrounding or in the buffer zone of the mosque. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Colombia, floor is yours.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Igualmente agradecemos la presentación de ICOMOS y teniendo en cuenta la importancia arquitectónica de esta mezquita, viendo que ICOMOS nos asegura que su integridad, su autenticidad han sido comprobados, su valor universal igualmente. Tenemos la misma preocupación que México y Qatar. Quisiéramos que el Estado parte nos dejara saber qué está pasando con el desarrollo de Made in Equitac y su relación con el sitio nominado. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Iraq, please, floor is yours.
شكرا. المسجد الجامع في أصفهان يمثل تحفة معمارية عبقرية من تحف البناء الإسلامي للمساجد، وقد امتاز بالتنوع في العناصر والزخارف التي ميزت عمارة المساجد في المراحل المبكرة من الفترة الإسلامية، خاصة ما يتعلق منها في بناء الأروقة والساحات والفضاءات وتصميم المنابر والقباب والأعمدة والأقواس والمداخل ذات الطابع المميز والأواوين. هنا نود أن نسأل الدولة الطرف على إجراءاتها أزاء ملاحظات الإيكوموس فيما يتعلق بفصل المسجد عن السوق وتوفير ممر للسابلة، إضافة إلى إجراءاتهم في تعزيز المنطقة العازلة. شكرا.
Thank you very much. Switzerland, floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Nous partageons évidemment l'avis des délégations qui ont pris la parole avant moi sur la valeur et l'importance incontestable de cet objet. Maintenant, il y a ce grand projet d'aménagement dans les abords immédiats de la mosquée et nous nous retrouvons en quelque sorte dans un état de conservation avant la date, avant la valeur universelle exceptionnelle est formellement reconnue. Et donc nous partageons l'avis de la délégation de l'Estonie que cette question doit être clarifiée avant d'inscrire le bien sur la liste du patrimoine mondial, et nous aimerions aussi, comme les autres, avoir l'avis de l'État partie sur les adaptations de ce projet qui pourraient garantir qu'il ne porte pas atteinte à la mosquée. Merci Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. France, floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Nous partageons les critiques du délégué de l'Inde concernant les critères évoqués dans le rapport de l'ICOMOS. Autrement, je crois que cette mosquée, ce monument nous parle d'évidence. Nous demandons bien sûr l'inscription, même si nous partageons les préoccupations que vient d'évoquer la Suisse concernant l'aménagement des alentours de ce monument. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. Senegal, floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. L'État partie du Sénégal voudrait bien sûr remercier l'ICOMOS pour la clarté de son exposé et noter avec ceux qui nous ont précédés qu'un certain nombre de valeurs fortes sont déjà confirmées, telles que la VIE, l'état de conservation et au moins un critère rempli. Donc nous sommes favorables a priori à une inscription, mais aimerions que l'État partie nous dise quand même quel est l'impact potentiel des aménagements annoncés, afin qu'on puisse s'assurer qu'on ne va pas être dans des situations dans lesquelles on s'est retrouvé il y a hier déjà sur des impacts visuels et autres. Donc on aimerait bien entendre l'État partie sur ce point-là. Merci.
Thank you very much. Serbia, floor is yours.
It is a great pleasure to see in the last few days, and especially in the process of new developments with the placement of great monuments on the list of World Heritage. It is encouraging to see many of the monuments from different cultures gaining their respectful and proper place in our idea of the World Heritage. It is therefore very remarkable and surprising not to see one of the greatest monuments of world architecture on that list already. And therefore, I'm very much in support, and Serbia is very much in support of the position of India, especially, and others who have voiced their support in favor of placing the Great Mosque of Isfahan in its rightful company. So I will end here without prolonging the discussion. There will be a lot more to say, but I will do that on another occasion.
Thank you very much. Malaysia.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Malaysia acknowledged the significance of Masjid Al-Jami' of Isfahan. The property is a masterpiece of brick architecture, which is innovative and is an ingenious piece of structures. These can be seen in the dome structures, brick patterns, intricate carved stucco, colored panels, and geometric motif. The mosque in particular reflects the high skills and excellent craftsmanship in the Islamic built heritage. It is important monument of historical, architectural, and cultural importance. Therefore, we feel that it is important enough to be seriously considered. And therefore, again, we would like to echo the same sentiment expressed by other committee members in giving the State Party the opportunity to update and clarify the nomination. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Algeria.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Il s'agit de la mosquée d'Ispahan. On n'a pas besoin d'aller plus loin. L'ICOMOS vient de nous confirmer d'ailleurs l'importance du bien qui constitue un chef-d'œuvre pour l'architecture islamique. L'intégrité et l'authenticité en sont reconnues. Nous souhaiterions toutefois écouter l'État partie sur le projet de l'impact sur le projet qui est proposé et son impact sur le bien. Nous rejoignons la Serbie qui recommande l'inscription de ce bien dont l'importance n'est pas à discuter. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, I once more see United Arab Emirates wants to take the floor. May I ask you, nomination is a very important part of our work. That's why I don't, cut your interventions. But, I have to manage the time, and I try to do it the best way possible. Please, limit yourself, because we have 22 sites for nominations. Please, be a little bit more short in your interventions. United Arab Emirates, do you have?
شكرا السيدة الرئيسة. الإمارات تؤيد وتتفق مع من سبقنا بالحديث على الأهمية الاستثنائية لهذا الموقع، ونثق بأن تدخل الدولة الطرف لإيضاح كل التساؤلات التي طرحت كفيل بإزالة أو كفيل بالتعامل الإيجابي مع ملاحظات الإيكوموس. شكرا.
Thank you very much. State Party, you have the floor. Please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the kind permission granted to us to enjoy the floor for a few minutes to elaborate on Iranian cultural heritage property. Prior to anything else, since this is the first time we have been granted the floor as an observer state, we would like to start our comments by expressing our sincere thanks to the government and people of the Russian Federation for their friendly welcome, warm hospitality, as well as organizing the magnificent cultural event we are attending. Madam Chair, this delegation, first of all, had decided to divide this explanation into two parts. First trying to elaborate on the universal value of the site, and then going to the development plan. But since we recognize that you have the questions, most of the questions, the majority of them, are just turning around the point of the development plan, I will start with that part. Regarding the proposal by ICOMOS about the revision of the revitalization plan concerning the northern part and the northern part of the square, and the inclusion of operations in Atiq Square within the buffer zone, we would like to announce that a decision has been adopted by the responsible local and national officials, including the Governor General, the Mayor, and the Director of the Isfahan Province Directorate of Cultural Heritage, Handicrafts and Tourism, who are attending the present session right now. Due to the outstanding values of the mosque at the local, national, and international levels, the mentioned officials have decided to limit the activities on the northern part of the square only to restoration and maintenance operations, in compliance with the report prepared by ICOMOS. Although it is still believed that the original plan would be able to promote the environmental conditions in the buffer zone. It is worth mentioning, however, that the revitalization plan on Meydan-e-Atiq had been prepared and proposed by the Iranian Cultural Heritage Organization based on the understanding that the revitalization of the historical square would enhance the environmental conditions in the buffer zone, and that the municipality of Isfahan and the Governor General's office only had expressed their commitment to promote the mentioned environmental conditions by expressing ability to execute the plan. Nevertheless, our Isfahani officials are here attending the present event to express through their presence their commitment to the mentioned decision. As a result, Madam Chair, you will see through this decision virtually all of the recommendations concerning the condition of the site will automatically, all of the concerns on the part of ICOMOS will automatically drop out. I have to just add that Meydan-e-Atiq, yes, it is located in the buffer zone. However, the project of Meydan-e-Atiq has been proposed as a revitalization project, as I mentioned before, on a historical square in the same place, which belongs to the Seljuk dynasty period, 12th century. The mentioned revitalization project, as I mentioned, has been argued to have the potential to exert promotion effects on environmental conditions inside the buffer zone. However, as I mentioned, we have decided, the Iranian delegation would like to bring to the notice of the distinguished committee members, having been informed of the concerns by ICOMOS, that the Iranian national and provincial officials have decided to limit the revitalization plan to the southern section of the square and leave altogether the northern section.
Preservation and
yeah, we include.
Preservation and maintenance.
Yeah, we will include the northwestern corner open to preservation and maintenance measures only. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just hope that I have been able to answer all of the questions.
Thank you very much. ICOMOS, you take the floor for comments.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. While we appreciate the general comments by the state party that the project will now be limited to the southern part of the square, which seems to have a considerable distance to the historic mosque, we would still appreciate some further level of detail as to what that would mean for the northern part of the square in terms of visitor flows, given that a large amount of people will gather in the square, and how these visitor flows will be directed in a way that does not affect the historic mosque. We would also like to answer to some of the questions that were posed to us by the state parties of India, Qatar and Colombia. The question of Qatar may no longer be relevant. It related to whether the project is attached to the outer walls of the mosque, but given the new information just provided by the state party, that doesn't seem to be the case anymore, given the latest information ICOMOS had received in the additional information provided to us earlier this year. The vaults were attached to the historic bazaar structures, which then again were attached to the outer walls of the mosque, so there was a physical continuity through the urban fabric. India had asked us concerning the OUV of the property, which indeed is present, and we've confirmed that several times, and we agree to the observations. being made, and Colombia's question was directed into the same direction, in that we confirm that authenticity and integrity is indeed present, but is highly vulnerable, especially to development projects, and therefore ICOMOS has put so much emphasis on its request that development projects of any kind in the buffer zone and further surroundings of the mosque are evaluated with comprehensive heritage impact assessments before any approval is given by the local authorities, and ICOMOS is always ready to provide its advisory services in these heritage impact assessments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues. It seems to me that we received very clear and answers from the ICOMOS and from State Party, and I propose you that we move on directly to the draft decision, if the draft decision is ready. So I give the floor to the reporter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have not received formal amendments to the draft decision, but based on the discussion that the committee has had so far, I guess, is my guess, that there will be amendments presented from the floor.
Colombia, please take the floor.
Gracias, señora Presidenta. Efectivamente, nosotros quisiéramos presentar el amendment de pasar de defer a inscription. Nosotros consideramos que todos los elementos necesarios para la inscripción están presentes, que este proyecto, este posible proyecto, no debe implicar, tener una implicación en la nominación en sí. El estudio de impacto de este proyecto se puede tratar perfectamente en el plan de manejo y de establecer cuáles serían los criterios de intervención. Por eso nosotros creemos que este dossier debe ser inscrito. Gracias.
Thank you very much. India.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to support the proposal and proposition from Colombia. I'd also like to add an amendment which notes the commitment of the State Party to the maintenance and preservation, especially of the northern part of the square, and its commitment to ensuring that its character and integrity are preserved. I am open to suggestions on that, but we note that commitment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Estonia, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Estonia supports the original resolution as put forward by the Secretariat on the basis of ICOMOS evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Iraq, floor is yours.
شكرا سيادة الرئيس. نؤيد المقترح الذي طرحته إستونيا. عفوا كولومبيا.
Thank you very much. Algeria.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous soutenons la proposition colombienne et indienne pour l'inscription du bien sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Merci.
Thank you very much. France, floor is yours.
Madame la Présidente, nous avons déjà exprimé notre soutien à l'inscription, mais nous voudrions préciser que pour nous, cette inscription pourrait être faite sur la base des critères 1, 2 et 4. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. Qatar, floor is yours.
شكرا سيدة الرئيسة. نحن نؤيد أيضا ما ورد من مندوب فرنسا. شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you very much. Malaysia.
To join, we also would like to join hand in supporting the nomination for inscription. Thank you.
South Africa, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. After listening to the State Party responding to some of the concerns, we would like to align ourselves with those parties supporting inscription. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So, dear colleagues, as Germany, please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We should mention that we should realize that we have no confirmed statement of outstanding universal value. Therefore, I recommend, if we are going for inscription, to decide no, we accept the statement of outstanding universal value on a provisional basis, because I think we have to ask ICOMOS again concerning the confirmed criteria. It is my understanding that at least only one criteria is confirmed, and I think we have to check that.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, as I understand, the majority for the moment supports the inscription. So first of all, we have to decide, all the members of the committee and even that who proposed to deferral would be agree on this. And then I will set up a small working group which will maybe with ICOMOS, which will draft complete, because it's impossible to work from the screen. I would ask the Estonian colleague if they can follow the majority, I mean the whole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. So we decided that we support the inscription of the site in the World Heritage List. So may I suggest that India, Colombia, ICOMOS, and maybe from some other countries will draft now the final decision, maybe with provisional OUV, which we can, to put like it necessary and adopt the draft decision. I give the floor to rapporteur.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I just say that we had talked to ICOMOS, and they have a proposed statement of OUV, but based only on criteria 2. So just for the member states to know that this is the text so far prepared in case they want to consider when they draft the amendments on this decision. And I'm willing to help if you so consider.
Thank you very much, but it's very important point, and I first give the floor to ICOMOS to clarify.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. We had acknowledged outstanding universal value, including the conditions of authenticity and integrity, under criterion 2, and we would be in a position to provide a statement of outstanding universal value for this. However, ICOMOS could not confirm outstanding universal value under criteria 1 and 4, and we would find it difficult to be in a working group providing these additional elements. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Colombia, please, floor is yours.
Gracias, señora presidenta. En ese punto estoy de acuerdo con ICOMOS. Este es el que ya está acordado, este ya es la criteria que está acordado. Creemos firmemente en que se debe hacer la inscripción de este bien. No sé si esto se hace en el comité, es nuestro primer año acá. Si pudiéramos preguntar al Estado parte si están de acuerdo de esta forma, con eso todo se haría más fácil, o eso se hace después. Gracias.
Thank you very much. State Party, what is your opinion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I told at the beginning of my address, we have prepared a very short outlined text referring to some of the values of the mosque. If it is possible, I'm going to read through it, and if it's accepted...
No, don't read it.
Okay.
I invite you to join the group if it is possible, and maybe it will be a provisional outstanding universal value for the criteria 1 and 4. If it is very firm statement from ICOMOS, yes, Germany.
Again, I like...
Well, excuse me, point of order. Switzerland, please take the floor.
Madame la Présidente, excusez-moi, mais je pense que là, il n'est pas normal que l'État partie rejoigne le groupe de travail chargé d'écrire cela. Je crois que là, non, je m'oppose fermement à cette manière de procéder. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Germany.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I like to propose that we accept the, so it is my understanding that ICOMOS has a draft statement of outstanding universal value. We should inscribe the site with this, on the basis of this drafted statement and of outstanding universal value, and on a provisional basis, and if it is necessary, I think it could be, we could make some amendments within the next year, but I think for our decision, we should, the basis should the draft of ICOMOS. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would like to precise criterion 2. What does it mean, criterion 2? ICOMOS, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Under criterion 2, we recognized the prototype character of the Masjid-e Jami in providing the first layout of a 4-Ivan plan that then became a prototype to mosque layouts all over the Eastern Islamic Empire, but we also recognized the prototype character of the Nizam al-Mulk dome with its Tarkine, so-called Tarkine rib structure, which was a technological development used for the very first time. And both of these aspects are reflected in criterion 2, which exhibits an important interchange of human values over a span of time or within a cultural area of the world in developments in architecture or technology, monumental arts, town planning and landscape design. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Serbia, floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je pense qu'on n'a pas bien compris l'état partie. Si on est d'accord pour l'inscription et si on a la justification pour le critère 2, il n'y a qu'à l'inscrire sous critère 2, et donc ça, c'est justifié par l'ICOMOS qu'il y a une valeur universelle exceptionnelle. Et donc, si on veut rajouter les 2 autres critères, ça c'est une autre chose. Là, il faut travailler beaucoup plus et peut-être remettre à plus tard et vraiment travailler bien si les données existent pour justifier les 2 valeurs qui n'étaient pas reconnues par l'ICOMOS. Donc, je voudrais que vous posiez la question à l'État partie. S'ils sont contents, parce que ça ne change rien, le site est inscrit. Donc, s'ils sont d'accord de l'inscrire sur le critère pour lequel nous sommes tous sûrs que ça existe, que c'est bien justifié, la Serbie est pour ça. Merci.
Thank you very much. It seems to me in this case we have not to ask the state party. It seems to me that the committee decided to inscribe. Now we have to precise, and it seems to me that it's very clear that ICOMOS has clearly identified OUV on criterion 2. So it seems to me that we have to follow this procedure. And as I said by our rapporteur, so now in this case we have everything on the screen. So I give you the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe just to help the committee. I'm going to go slowly for the proposed amendments, bearing in mind the decision of the committee to inscribe this site. So we go paragraph by paragraph, please. Paragraph 1 has no change. Then paragraph 2 inscribes, inscribes the Masjid-e Jami, sorry for the pronunciation, on the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 2. Then,
excuse me, are there any objection? I see none, so adopted. Go on.
Okay, the new paragraph 3 should say, adopts the following provisional statement of outstanding universal value, and then we have the text proposed by ICOMOS.
Are any objection? I see none, so adopted. Move on, please.
Now, as a new paragraph 3,
Colombia, please.
Señora Presidenta, en algún momento estábamos pensando
It's
que
not
se iba a armar
provisional.
un grupo de trabajo para escribir este draft, pero veo que ya lo estamos
it is-
aceptando. Entonces nosotros tenemos un párrafo que en coordinación con Suiza queremos adherir después. ¿Ok? Si esto se va a aceptar en este momento. Gracias.
Excuse me, may I ask, we see here in paragraph 3 adopts the following provisional statement. No, it seems to me it's not provisional, it's statement of outstanding universal value. We have to take it provisional off. Move on. India.
Madam Chair, insofar as 2 is concerned, it is not provisional. It is the statement of outstanding universal value. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yes, of course. So go on.
okay, I think that we should need to have a new paragraph 4, taking the following text. Request the state party to, and then we go to the little a, b, c, and Romanito 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4, and D. All the components that were before in the previous paragraph 2.
Are you agree? Are there any objections? That the previous paragraph 2, with necessary request of the state party, now will be the paragraph 4. Yes, Colombia.
Señora Presidenta, el párrafo que queremos anexar es en referencia al proyecto, al Meidan EATIC. Creo que en el punto C podríamos entonces, es una recomendación que diría, toma nota de la declaración del Estado parte que el proyecto Meidan EATIC no será realizado que dentro de la parte de la zona tampón que es la más alejada del bien para respetar el valor universal excepcional. Pero no sé si ese podría ser un párrafo independiente en recomendaciones porque empieza un takes note, sería un párrafo independiente, no hay en C, pero no quiero que esa letrita C vaya a contradecir en nada este párrafo que queremos incluir. Gracias. Y quisiera adherir que esta es una propuesta de Colombia y Suiza.
But it seems to me that it has to be separate point,
Exactamente,
maybe because
estaba
it's
diciendo
not...
eso. Perfecto, gracias.
Okay, please take the floor, Rapporteur.
Yes, Madam Chairperson. Okay, now that we have this proposal from the distinguished Ambassador of Colombia, we could follow with the next paragraph. Now it looks like paragraph 6. We realized that the drafting of this paragraph was a little bit strange. So may I maybe propose to the committee the following draft. Encourage the state party to invite an advisory mission to assist in the revision of the Meidan EATIC project and to ensure that it does not constitute a negative impact on the outstanding universal value of the mosque. if that is accepted by the committee.
Please encourage the state party to ensure, please take it off to end.
May I read it again, Madam Chairperson? Again, I will go slowly. Encourage the state party to invite an advisory mission, it's in the text, an advisory mission to assist in the revision of the Maiden Ethic project and to ensure, please delete the invitation of the state party. And to ensure, and the rest remains the same.
Are there any objection?
No, I think it's captured it, but you could stop it at project because that's repetitive. So to assist in the revision of the project, that's all.
Colombia, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora Presidenta. Era lo mismo porque es repetitivo con el párrafo 5. Volvemos a repetir que es para proteger el universal value que ya está explícito en el párrafo 5. Gracias.
Here we speak about the advisory mission. That's on. So, paragraph 5. Are any objections to paragraph 5, like amended? I see none, so adopted. So, the paragraph 6, which is encouraging the state party to invite an advisory mission. No. No. No, it's not that. So it's paragraph 6, encourages the state party to invite an advisory mission to assist in the revision of the Maiden and Attic projects. Are anybody object? No. So then paragraph 7, please take the floor.
Yes, Madam Chairperson, the new paragraph 7 and 8, I think we can keep it as they are, while we will need to get rid of the new paragraph 9.
Excuse me, first we have to adopt the paragraphs 7 and 8. It is like it was in a previous version of the decision. So are there anybody against to adopt these two paragraphs? I see nobody, so adopted. So we move on now to the paragraph, paragraph 6, which is proposed to be deleted. I see no objection, so it is adopted. Now we have to adopt. Yes, please.
Sorry, Madam Chair, a final proposal. Following the standard language that we adopt with this kind of decision, may I propose to the committee a final paragraph, in this case paragraph 9, which reads, actually the same language that the Switzerland delegation had proposed, which basically requires the state party to submit by 1st February 2013 a report to the World Heritage Center outlining progress made in the implementation of the demands and above-mentioned recommendations to be examined by the committee at its next session.
Are there any objections? I see none, so adopted. And now we have to adopt the whole decision. Decision 36,8b.23, Majed et Jasmeh of Isfahan, Iran, is adopted as amended. Congratulations, the State Party. State Party, Iran, please, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. Madam Chair, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with thanking the Russian Federation for the warm hospitality extended to all of us here in St. Petersburg. Thanks are also due to all the distinguished members of the World Heritage Committee for inscribing Masjid-e-Jami of Isfahan on the World Heritage List. The mentioned attitude is, no doubt, to guarantee the perpetuation of the heritage of humanity, also for their proper handing over to the future generation. Madam Chair, the Iranian delegation fully understands the concern on the part of the World Heritage Committee as well as ICOMOS regarding the outstanding universal value of Masjid-e-Jami of Isfahan. We are fully grateful. Also, as for our part, we would like to announce our full commitment to the approvals and resolution decided upon in the course of the present session. As expressed by a number of prominent internationally known specialists, experts, and researchers, Masjid-e-Jami of Isfahan encompasses a collection of masterpieces of art, architecture, and other fields of traditional knowledge. The site also functioned as the point around which the city of Isfahan started to emerge and grow for a period of more than 1,000 years. The inscription today defines the Iranian official in charge of culture with a huge safeguarding task for which they are committed to direct all of their efforts. Also, it created a sense of pride among the Iranians, especially the people of Isfahan, for becoming visible to the world once again. Madam Chair, the Iranian delegation would like to end this short address with expressing a special respect to the memory of two internationally known scholars for a lifetime of hard work and research on Masjid-e-Jami, the late Professor Galdieri, the prominent Italian scholar whose work continues to function as reliable reference sources on the mosque, and the late Professor Shirazi, the Iranian cultural heritage expert, for his devotion to the site. Thank you all once again.
Thank you very much and congratulations. I could tell you that in St. Petersburg is one of the beautiest and biggest mosques in Russia, so you can visit it, yes. And before I close the session, I give the floor for some announcement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The budget group is meeting from 2 to 3 in the library room, and the delegation of the Republic of Korea is hosting a lunchtime workshop in room 1, starting at 2 o'clock on World Heritage involving communities. Coffee and cookies will be served.
So at 3 o'clock sharp, we have to meet here. Thank you.